Body home.
Today, I want you to open your mind.
Almost come to the conclusion that the story is so damn big that the mass of people can't deal with it.
We are in process of developing a whole series of techniques to get people actually to love their servitude.
We face a hostile ideology, global in scope, atheistic in character, ruthless in purpose, and insidious in method.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence.
To change the minds and the attitudes and the beliefs of the people to bring about one world socialist totalitarian government.
The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists.
It has patterned itself after every dictator who has ever planted the ripping imprint of a boot on the pages of history since the beginning of time.
If you can get people to consent to the state of affairs in which they are living, then you have a much more easily controllable society than you would if you were relying wholly on clubs and firing squads and concentration camps.
Tools of conquest do not necessarily come with bombs and explosions and fallout. There are weapons that are simply thoughts, attitudes, prejudices.
As you connect the dots between different people, organizations, religions, history, suddenly the picture starts to form.
The kingdom of God is within man, not one man nor a group of men.
Someone born in the United States is not more special than someone born in Mexico. Someone who is white is not more special than someone who is black. They're just vehicles for the consciousness to experience.
They do not want your children to be educated. They do not want you to think too much.
It was learned that the aliens had been and were then manipulating masses of people through secret societies, witchcraft, magic, the occult, and religion.
They reach into our children in music, television, books.
Right, no children's innocence.
How can I disprove lies that are stamped with an official seal?
So if you have the opportunity to stand next to one of these machines, it feels like an altar to an alien god.
Genetic power is the most awesome force the planet's ever seen, but you wield it like a kid that's found his dad's gun.
The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc is now in the possession of the Army.
Too many others know what's happening out there. And no government agency has jurisdiction over the truth.
Any state, any entity, any ideology that fails to recognize the worth, the dignity, the rights of man, that state is obsolete. A case to be filed under M for mankind in the Twilight Zone.
It's about time some of you got acquainted with the real hard truth.
It's the heart that says, I will not acquiesce.
Freedom is the privilege to be right. Freedom from the disasters and from mistakes.
You don't connect the dots. It's just a mass of what's all this about.
You are listening to the Secret Teachings Radio. I'm your host, Ryan Gable. Thank you so much for tuning in to this special Friday edition of TST Radio. If you'd like to reach out to the show, you can do so in the live chat on X, Facebook, and YouTube. And of course, rdgable@yahoo.com is our email. You can email me at any time of the day or night, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. That's rdgable@yahoo.com. Our very, very old, but still functioning email. You know, I've tried so many emails over the years, and Yahoo just seems to be the only one that still works. Although I do think that my emails are getting lost in the mix because I can't get messages back from guests anymore, which is why we tend to do a lot of shows that are just me and my own research, but I know I can trust myself too. So tonight's investigation, I don't have an expert on. I am the expert tonight because I don't really believe any official narrative or any unofficial alternative narrative about anything. And after admittedly having to do a crash course, no pun intended, on the MH370 flight from over a decade ago that went missing, still a great mystery, I've come to the conclusion that most of the theories about MH370 are akin to every other government conspiracy cover-up, every alternative opinion, especially UFO stories. MH370 has a really similar UFO feel to it. And I'll tell you what I mean by that as the show goes on tonight. So, what happened to MH370? That is the topic of tonight's episode. As I said, we are live on the various video streaming platforms. But for those of you tuned in there, whether you're watching this live or you're watching this later, most of our audience is in the audio-only archive. So that's why you'll hear me refer to audio only throughout the show. And that audience is the mass majority, 99.99%. And they get to listen to the secret teachings 5 nights a week. So if you're only watching this, know that there is an archive of episodes going back, well, to 2010. I believe the archive has 2014. There's a lot of old episodes that I don't really like, but there are a bunch of still very old episodes in the archive, and I'm showing that to you on screen right now. So if you are only watching, you'll know that this is a Monday through Friday broadcast. I'm showing you this because I get asked all the time on YouTube and other places, why don't you do more shows? I do shows 5 nights a week, Monday through Friday. Most of you know that, but for new listeners, this is a Monday through Friday radio show. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. If you would like to subscribe to the archive to get access to all those shows without advertisements, there's a free archive, but there's a subscription archive on our website. Click the subscribe button. You have a bunch of different options to subscribe to our full archive. And you also get access to more, like the article archive, montage archive, and if you're in the yearly tier, my books as well. And as for my new book, hopefully it'll be out soon. I keep saying that, but it's going through a proofread process right now. And that takes some time, and I'm going to let the process play out and not rush it. I'm doing my best to facilitate several people looking at the book and making sure that it's all okay. Now, what you did just see on your screen there was a upcoming David Wilcock stream, and I wish that it was already live because I wanted to discuss this tonight. The incoming spaceship of 3i Atlas, which is not a spaceship. Nobody said it was a spaceship. Nobody with any credibility, even people with like a little credibility, nobody said it was a spaceship. The UFO community has said it's a spaceship because they don't know how to read, because they're illiterate. They are quoting people like Avi Loeb, who, although he has said Oumuamua and other interstellar objects like Borisov could very likely be Bracewell probes or some type of object that is artificial, he did not say the 3i Atlas object is artificial. He said it could be, which sure it could. It's like Schrodinger's box. And he said it was probably a comet in the paper. And yet you have pieces of garbage like David Wilcock who claim that it's a spaceship and tell people there's a spaceship coming. And there are also people ready to get on the spaceship. They're ready to probably castrate themselves. Hope they haven't done that yet. Drink the Kool-Aid and kill themselves to get on the comet. It's just that's how the UFO world works now. Everything is aliens. Everything's a spaceship. And MH370 has been pulled into that. I mean, it was at the beginning when it was first missing. And now 10 years later, I've noticed this especially in the last year. There are like these cults that believe the plane was teleported. I'm sure you know the videos I'm talking about, and I'll show them to you tonight. But there are people that believe that the plane was teleported, that these orbs appeared around it and teleported the plane. And my goodness, try convincing them that that's not a real video, or even asking them, are you sure that's a real video? And you will be met with the same kind of hostility that you'll be met with when you tell people that Avi Loeb didn't actually say 3i Atlas was a spaceship. He said it was a comet. He said that in the paper. And so that's why I've decided to do the show on MH370 tonight, because I wanted to do a UFO-themed show or something kind of supernatural and paranormal. And I thought, well, MH370 has a lot of those characteristics for obvious reasons. And also, well, now it's become a UFO topic because people believe the plane was teleported by orbs. And I'll just tell you this off the tip of the show tonight. I don't really know. I don't. Unlike all the other hacks and con artists and frauds and liars and grifters and then big grifters who do big time swindles, I don't have the answers to this. You know, I scoured through the internet finding different opinions and theories. I watched the documentary on Netflix. It's a 3-part documentary. It was okay. It was relatively objective, but not, I don't think, entirely objective. I mean, they really interviewed a lot of people with a lot of different theories. Not going as far to give airtime to some of the wacky theories. Maybe like 20 seconds of there's conspiracy theories about aliens and the Illuminati took it. And I don't even know what the hell any of that even means anymore. But that doesn't mean that I believe the official story. It's a mystery. And if there's a mystery, there's always going to be some kind of hack like David Wilcock. He's just an archetype that's going to try to profit from a tragedy, that's going to try to profit from a mystery. And it's totally disgusting. But that's why I do this show, because I don't want to profit from anything like that. I don't want to exploit. I don't want to take advantage of. I just want answers. And hey, if the answers come by way of the supernatural, and if that is the only conclusion we can come to, then great. It's fine by me. I don't really care. I'm not really married to an idea. It's not really a prerogative of mine to solve mysteries that benefit my belief system. I'm just interested in getting to a more rational answer, whatever that answer might be. So that's my introductory statement. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. Like I said, if you're in the video version of tonight's show, there are ways that you can chat with us, X, Facebook, and primarily on YouTube. We don't really do this except once a week because of the financial costs and because of the fact that things just get removed, like our old YouTube channel. It's not really worth it, so that's why we have the audio archive. But I'd like to say hello to everybody in the chat. I have the chat actually on the screen right now as well. We have Robert, who I believe was the first one in the chat tonight. Robert, who says that he believes the plane landed at Diego Garcia. And I actually think that if there is any conspiracy that is relatively accurate and is aligned with the data, I actually think that that might be the most reasonable conspiracy theory from Robert Kuchar. I think I don't know about the semiconductors, but I do think that it's in the relative area of where the British data said that the plane should have been. And what are the chances that there's a military base right in that area? I mean, like in the middle of literally absolutely nowhere, and the plane just happens to go there. To me, that is one of the most potentially accurate theories. It might have, and they didn't really even talk about that much in the documentary. It was like, oh, it's kind of a conspiracy theory. It's kind of wacky. It's like, I don't know if that's kind of wacky. It's kind of like in the area where the data went. And that's the one thing they didn't really focus on in the Netflix documentary was like, hey, there's a military base really close to where the data said that the plane was, and they didn't find debris from it. So, or maybe they did. Who knows? We don't even know if the debris found was from the plane. They said it probably was, but it didn't have ID tags. So that's really suspicious. Anyway, welcome to the chat, Robert. Michael is also here. Michael said it had to do with a black hard drive being stolen and was en route to be sold. Flight was intercepted. All souls on board were sterilized as a precaution. Potentially, I don't know. Maybe. I guess that kind of goes along with the semiconductor patents and the technology on board and all that. Leonard is here. Good afternoon. It is good morning here where I am in Japan. Ohio gozaimasu. Patriot Girl's here. Hello, Patriot Girl. Matt Hector. I don't know, Matt Hector might be kind of accurate too. He said nothing happened. Final answer. Kind of feels like that. Nothing happened. Move on. Corey McDonald is here. Thank you, Corey, for joining us. Tim Curley. I do believe I saw Tim in a live chat the other day over David Wilcock. Was that you, Tim? Maybe it was Grifting Grandma. Maybe that was the show we watched. Hello, Tim. Welcome to the show. I appreciate you joining us. Flux is here. I think Flux is always here. And as I scroll down through, we're getting new listeners by the moment, so I have to do this pretty quickly. Sylvia is here. Hello, Sylvia. Julia is here. Hello, Julia. Mario is here. Hello, Mario from California. Joe Ryder is here. Thank you for joining us, Joe. I appreciate the kind comment on the shows this week. They've been really good shows this week. We did the archaeology, ancient history, megalith shows. We did the show on weapons, which was, I thought, really good. And I actually enjoyed the Axis of Upheaval show that was Thursday. That was last night. Well, for me, I recorded it the day before, so it's Saturday here. So yeah, it was Thursday your time. Would have been yesterday your time. The Axis of Upheaval show. I thought it was really good. I thought it was unique. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you haven't listened to it, it is in the archive, as well with all of our other shows. PT says, my boy, we are live from Chicago, Illinois, me and Amanda. Are you in Chicago? I took a shot at Chicago on the show last night. I don't like Chicago. I guess so. Tim says he's in Chicago too. I don't really like the Windy City that much. How's the shooting going there in Chicago? I heard that they had like triple digits of shootings in the last week. That's pretty normal and standard, I think, though. Also, Diana is here. Diane Perry is here. Deer Park, California. Well, a lot of people from Chicago and California. Sonam Ebel is here. Spreaker listener. Thank you for listening on Spreaker. That supports the show. Patrick Hartman is here. I think Patrick's always here along with Tim and Evan Kelly from Texas. I think he's been here a lot. Hello, Evan. Thank you for joining the show tonight. I'm just one nut. Thank you for joining us. The DoD did a PSYOP. Maybe I'm missing some context in the chat room. Oh, here it is. I don't believe MH370 was ever found, Flux. Yeah, I don't think it was actually found either. Although Flux does present an interesting question. Did the plane actually disappear? Like officially, but maybe if it landed at a military base, it was unofficial. I mean, when I was watching this documentary on Netflix about this, honestly, I've never done a show on this. I've never even, I don't think I've ever commented on this, ever. And it's a giant mystery. And the reason I even came to this in the first place was because I watched Manifest, which I liked for 2 episodes, and then it got really boring, and I couldn't stand the woman who dated the other guy, and I started disliking the characters, and I stopped watching it. Like 5 episodes, I think I got into it. I didn't like Manifest. And I watched Into the Night. That was a show I didn't think would be any good, and it ended up being decent. Kind of got weird in the second season, but it was I liked it better than Manifest, and they're both plane shows. And plane shows always scared me because, like a lot of people, I'm kind of afraid of flying, not because of crashing or something like that, just because it feels like I'm out of control. I can't stop the car and go to the bathroom or get a snack. Like I'm in the air, can't stop the car. So that's why I don't like flying. But it's like Into the Night is like a sci-fi show. So I watched that, and it was like serendipitous. I just, probably because of the algorithm, it said, hey, you might like this MH370 documentary. So I watched it, and I thought, why have I not done a show on this? So I started piecing a show together, and here we are tonight. Zach in the chat says, this is great commentary, Ryan. I'm glad I found your channel. Don't forget, Zach, we have a show Monday through Friday, and you can access it in Spreaker, Apple, all the different platforms. The links are below on YouTube, and also you can listen, if you are a subscriber, without any ads to every show Monday through Friday. Thank you for joining us, Zach Diecast. Marilyn is also here from Florida, my home state. Hello, Marilyn from Florida. And a few more of these very quickly. King Kraka is here. Hello, King Kraka, in the chat room. Is that Michael Russell Stewart from Cleveland, Ohio? And Chris is here. I enjoyed your ancient history shows this week. Thank you, Chris. I enjoyed those too, and I want to do more of those ancient history shows because they are mysteries. The Black Earth, the Terra Preta, is a mystery in the Amazon. The terraforming of the Amazon is a mystery. It's an astounding mystery that few know about, and those are mysteries that I think are, in a way, they're equal to MH370. It's just like civilizations that disappeared, and we don't know what happened to them, but we have this evidence of very little evidence of their existence. We have chronicles, we have journals, we have physical evidence, but we really don't know anything else. Although we probably know more about the Amazon than we do about MH370. But the point was, when I was watching that documentary, the first thing I thought when I saw, okay, the plane leaves and they're looking for it north of Malaysia, and then the data shows that it actually turned around and came back over Malaysia and then went out potentially over the Indian Ocean and then south, and that's where they believe, because of the data, that the plane is from satellite pings from a British company. I don't know how technical we're going to get tonight. I don't think technicalities are necessary for this show. But I'm thinking, as I'm watching that, I thought, well, if it didn't land somewhere, because it ran on like, what, 6 to 7 hours of fuel or something like this after it disappeared, because it was going to Beijing. And I thought, well, the only answer to this that makes any sense, if it really did disappear and it didn't land somewhere and there's no evidence of debris, it had to have gone to a military base. That was my first thought. And I had never heard or read anything about this outside of like, oh, UFOs made it disappear, or it's just a mystery. Doesn't mean it's right. I just thought, this has got to be some kind of operation. Planes don't just disappear. I mean, even in the Bermuda Triangle, even in they kind of refer to the Bermuda Triangle as the Devil's Triangle now, which I'm confused about, because I always thought that the Devil's Triangle was south of Japan, or they call that, I guess, the Devil's Sea, or the Dragon Triangle. But even in those areas, especially the Bermuda Triangle, they find wreckage of the ships. They find wreckage of the planes. There's electrical anomalies, magnetic anomalies. There are potentially rogue waves and things like this. They find evidence that there's a crash or that there's a ship that sinks. And you would expect to find the same with a large airliner, and you don't. To me, it just feels like it probably went to a military base. That's my conclusion from watching the documentary. I'm not saying that's the answer. I'm just saying, like, that's the conclusion that I came to within the it had to have been like the first 10 minutes of that documentary. I thought, oh, it went to a military base. Now, I'm not saying that's the answer. I'm just saying that that's kind of like the feeling that I had. And it's just so strange. I'll show you a map of this here so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. Although I know most of you are listening audio only, you can look this up independently, separately, and see it for yourself. But let me bring the map up and show you. Or maybe I have the wrong. Here, I have the wrong one up. Let me bring up the other screen. I will show you the area of the ocean that this plane reportedly went missing in. So the plane took off here. I'll show you on the map. The plane took off from Malaysia, and there are diagrams of this. So this is pretty easy to look up. We're talking like an 11-year-old case. Took off from Malaysia. It's going to Beijing, It's about to enter into, I believe, Vietnamese airspace, and it disappears off radar somewhere around here. And then there's supposedly military data, which I find convenient, of it turning back around, flying from where it roughly disappeared back across Malaysia, and then it flew reportedly up the how do you pronounce that? Malacca Strait, and then up here to the Andaman Sea, and then probably somewhere out here to the Bay of Bengal, and then south, and then it just went south, south, south until it reportedly disappeared somewhere around here, roughly. There's different data points, but somewhere around there, roughly, somewhere around there. And I thought, again, well, the only information we have about where it went was there's confirmation reportedly from the military that the plane turned back around. And that's really it. There's just like confirmation that the plane turned back around. And then there is data from a British company that there was, I guess, a piece of technology on board the plane, on board MH370, that was able to be tracked through satellite pings that give you a rough estimate of where the device is, if it's still active, even if the plane had, disappeared and they couldn't track it, even if it had, mysteriously vanished, they still had a satellite ping on where this thing went. And so that company's called Inmarsat, satellite company, and they say basically somewhere around here. And you can find, if you typed in MH370 diagram map. Again, this was 11 years ago, so there's all kinds of maps on this now people have made. So this gives you an idea of where it went missing, turned around. There's a military base right here, and then it flew out this way. And then there are other maps that you can see just to get a general idea of where it supposedly disappeared, roughly somewhere in this vast stretch of the Indian Ocean. My point was, though, out there in the Indian Ocean, or at least close enough to it, is Diego Garcia. It's just like I was wondering, is there anything out there? And then they mentioned that in the documentary, and I thought, yeah, I'm already convinced it probably went to a military base. Now, the reasoning, I don't know. Could have been semiconductors. It could have been some other technology. I mean, I just think of it like this. I think of Project Northwoods. I think of Project Northwoods, which I'll also bring up on screen for you here because it sounds like it's a made-up story. This has been out since the 90s. Q didn't declassify this. Trump didn't declassify this like people have claimed. Project Northwoods has been out since, I believe it was the mid-90s. And there are lots of different sources. Everybody has pulled a copy of this and posted it. We can go to archive.org. We can go to, I don't mind the Black Vault. We can go to the Black Vault. I guess they have a link for that somewhere here. It's justification for the intervention in Cuba. And it was a plan to stage the hijacking of commercial airliners, I guess that document link isn't working. Stage terror attacks in Miami, blow up things and blame it on the enemy. So here's the document. And in this document, there's a plan to place a fake, I believe they call it a transponder, on a military plane painted to look like a civilian plane, and then to fly it and blow it up, and to fly the passengers from the commercial plane that would have been hijacked to a military base. It's in the document. And then we can imagine that they probably would have Maybe they gave people the option. Hey, you can choose to go into witness protection and live and never contact your families again, and here's $1 million, or they just shoot you in the head and dispose of the bodies. But this was a plan that the U.S. government had. And if you think that other governments wouldn't do the same thing to civilians, you're out of your mind. You're crazy. So just to imagine that a plane would be hijacked or in some way, shape, or form, it would be maneuvered, could have been hijacked remotely. We know that technology exists as well. That wasn't in any of the documentaries I've seen, and flown to a military base. Some people think China hijacked it. The data doesn't seem to indicate that at all. But if something like that did happen, it wouldn't really be a surprise at all. And by the way, Diego Garcia is also, I believe, a joint US-UK military installation. And that's particularly interesting because the company that gave the data was a UK company. And to me, I was hoping to save this for toward the end of the show, but I think that it probably is best to put it up front, and that is to show you that it appears that if anything is accurate, that to me makes the most sense. How do you spell that company? It's Inmarsat, I think, or something like that. Yeah, Inmarsat. It's very strange that there's a US-UK military base in the middle of absolutely nowhere where the plane went, and the data indicates that it's somewhere there. To me, that makes the most sense. Anyway, in the chat room, Flux said something about the Discord channel. Yes, we do have that set up. I don't know how it works completely. It's just too many buttons. It's too complicated. I'm going to try to figure that out, but you can join the Discord. It's free. A lot of people have Discord, so you can get on Discord, and we'll eventually build that up so we have a place to chat off air as well. As Tim said, what I love about these live streams is it's fun to interact with everybody. I wish there was a TST Discord. Well, there is a TST Discord. Yes, I don't really use it. Like, I even have an Instagram. I tried posting 3 things and I just got tired of it. I'm like, this is stupid. Who sits and looks at this all day? You have to have a low IQ. I can't stare at this garbage. It's too much. So I have a Discord. I'm going to try to use it. So if you want to click the links below, however you're listening, there's a link below, and you can get on the Discord. Rita just joined us. Hello, Rita. Thank you for joining the show tonight. Okay, so anyway, this isn't really about my opinion. This isn't really about my theory. I just think if the data shows that the plane went to a certain remote part of the world, and that remote part of the world happens to have a US-UK military base, and the company that gave you the data that kind of pushed you to search in this one area is like really close to, and the company is also like a UK-based company, like, this is some suspicious stuff, I think. And I think that all of these other 90% of the other theories sort of are built around, well, we shouldn't believe in conspiracies. Governments wouldn't do that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, governments wouldn't do that. Of course they would. I mean, it's not really a debatable thing. So again, I don't know, and I'm not suggesting that something is true. I'm just telling you outright that if I had to pick something, that's my best guess. I don't really have an opinion on why. I've heard the semiconductor theory. I've heard other theories, but I just think in terms of like where the plane went, that's probably where. If you don't have debris, if the data shows it went here, and the data is it's a UK data set, and it's a UK US military installation, like it probably went to Diego Garcia. That's just what I think. But let's go back sort of to the beginning, and not just with MH370. Let's go back to the beginning with some other stuff too. Let's go back to the beginning with just aviation and other forms of incidents and accidents. There have been 3 different stories in the news about the Bermuda Triangle and about this particular story from Science Times was last year. There were 3 different stories I read in the news, though. This one is from the New York Post a week ago. The Bermuda Triangle mystery could be explained by this natural phenomenon, scientist claims. This is not a new theory, but Dr. Simon Boxall, an oceanographer from the University of Southampton, contends that loosely defined geographical region in the Atlantic Ocean, this Bermuda Triangle, as we know it, this lovely Bermuda Triangle, that it is an area where you find rogue waves, and that those rogue waves and storms might have gobbled up some of the ships. And again, this is not, it's like a Mandela effect. I mean, I've heard this theory over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. I used to watch Bermuda Triangle shows when I was a kid on TV. I've read lots of Bermuda Triangle books. And it was also when I first, outside of UFOs, when I first started to find an interest in the mysterious. I lived in Florida, and the Bermuda Triangle was just like right there. So it was a subject and an area of interest. I read all kinds of stuff on the Bermuda Triangle. I've heard every theory. You know, it's Atlantis. That makes 0 sense. There's a pyramid with a crystal, and so that's what pulled the plane down. It's heard like really wild stuff that is even weirder than that. There's an entrance to the inner Earth, to the core. It sucks everything in. It's like, do people listen to what you're saying? I think a lot of people that say that are kind of like Peter Griffin. When Brian asks him in one of those old episodes of Family Guy, he's like, do you even listen to yourself talk? He's like, I drift in and out. The UFO community is kind of like that. They just kind of drift in and out of what they're saying. But the Bermuda Triangle is still a fascinating mystery, because despite the fact that this particular article from the New York Post just a week ago says that the mystery is solved, possibly because of this rogue wave phenomenon. It's like, that's not really a new theory, though. Like we've known about that. Or yeah, Jello Putin in the chat says Atlanta is actually Atlantis. Yes, according to the high IQ Atlanteans or Atlanteans, yes, Atlanta is Atlantis. If you missed that show, by the way, that was a fun show we did. That was the Megalithic Mysteries show, actually. We did about 2 weeks ago. And there's people in Atlanta who are of the belief that Atlanta is Atlantis. So they need to fix the education system there. Maybe cut off the social media and the TikTok. But the Bermuda Triangle is a mystery, and the rogue wave theory is not a new theory, but it's a Mandela effect theory. It's like being presented again. And here it is again. Maybe it's rogue waves. And that might explain some things. Here's another one. Bermuda Triangle's magnetic glitches still puzzle experts. This was 2 days ago. And the magnetic anomalies, this is in the article. And let me get rid of some of this distracting stuff in these articles. It's so ridiculous. Okay, so Earth's magnetic field is an invisible force that extends from the planet's interior to outer space, influencing compass readings and navigation systems generated by the movement of the molten iron within Earth's core. It's basically a giant magnet. And this is also a natural phenomenon. Underwater volcanic activity, shifting tectonic plates, influencing the magnetic field, even human-made factors, sunken ships, submerged technology, maybe Atlantean pyramids, but there's some sort of perhaps magnetic anomaly in that general area, what we call the Bermuda Triangle. And it's not, again, not a new theory. That's really the only explanation that makes any sense. It's probably a combination of factors. There's magnetic anomalies. It has something to do with the Earth's magnetic field. There's probably rogue waves. There's probably also just like accidents, storms. There's a lot of things that happen that probably contribute to why ships go missing and why planes go down out there. And with the Bermuda Triangle, we've also seen that there are lots of explanations after the fact. There's lots of evidence after the fact. We find the planes, not all of them, but we find a lot of the planes, we find a lot of the ships. So it's not like things just totally vanish and disappear, which is what makes MH370 so much of a mystery, because it's not that it just disappears for a little bit 11 years later and we still don't have any answers. Now you could say, well, they found some debris off the coast of Africa. What was it? Madagascar? Maybe, but there's no real confirmation that any of those pieces of debris that were found there, first of all, are actually from a plane, or that they're not planted. Second of all, the one piece that was found that appeared to be part of the wing, and I believe that was found on the island of Reunion, I think it was called. I'll pull that up for you as well. It appeared to be missing the identification tag, which even in a disaster, those tags usually don't come off. They're like black boxes. Let me see if I can find the picture of it for you. Yeah, here's the picture. This was found. Possible debris, Reunion Islands here off the east coast of Madagascar. So if you're looking at this particular map here, for example, if it actually pulls up, might have to do that again. Open image file. So Diego Garcia is somewhere around here. The search area was here based on the data from the countries, or from the country that partly runs this military base. And then they found debris over here. Now, I believe that has to do with the ocean current. So it maybe gets circulated around here. That's how one guy reportedly found some of the debris over here off the coast of Africa. And of course, Australia also spent a considerable amount of time and energy and money searching out here, and they couldn't find anything either initially. And they searched for years, searched here, all the way here, and nothing. I mean, but you think about it, like, look at how big the ocean is, right? It's massive. It's incomprehensible. And so you follow the ocean currents and you find debris here. The problem is, at least what appears to be, a problem perhaps, is that the piece of debris that was found didn't have an identification tag. And reportedly, of all the serial numbers on it, only one of them matched. I think it was 10, or it was definitely 10. It could have been up to a dozen of the serial numbers did not match with the manufacturer data. And yet, this little piece of the plane is still supposed to be evidence of MH370. This piece here. And, when I first saw it, I thought, well, if that's the piece, it's like, if that's it, then great. That's it. They found it. They found a piece. But, if it doesn't have the ID tags and the serial numbers don't fully match up, it's also weird that one serial number would match up and others didn't. I think that's weird. Maybe it's not. I don't work in the aviation industry, so I don't know. Do you use the same serial numbers for different parts or planes? Or I don't know. Maybe it's a coincidence. 1 out of 10, 1 out of 12, that's not a very good number. But this is where they supposedly found, or where they did find it, but where it supposedly was brought by the ocean. But you would expect to find something else. When I was a kid, and there were hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico, and there were really nasty hurricanes that devastated New Orleans and Louisiana. The way that the ocean, or the I guess you'd say the Gulf, the way that the Gulf worked is that that stuff would circulate. And frankly, I honestly don't call it the Gulf of America, by the way. I still think of it as the Gulf of Mexico. I don't really care, but I grew up on the Gulf of Mexico. To me, it's the Gulf of Mexico. I don't really care. But you could go to St. Pete Beach and you could, in fact, I could probably show you on the other map here we have. Where's that other map at? So like when the hurricane would hit somewhere here, really devastating hurricane, I grew up here, this little finger, St. Pete area and Pinellas County. And if you go out to the beach, I remember going to the beach and finding there was like shoes. It was really scary actually, because there were like, I was a kid, there's like a shoe, there's like clearly debris from somebody's house that had washed up on shore on St. Pete Beach. And it's, yeah, Deborah's right in the chat. I'm pretty sure that was Katrina, I think. But there were other hurricanes too, even going back before that, where stuff would wash up on the beach. So, I mean, the ocean's massive. I understand that. I actually, I don't. Let me rephrase. I don't understand. It's too big to comprehend, and it's scary. And the fact that anything, I guess, would wash up on this tiny little island would be weird enough. But I feel like you'd find more debris. And reportedly some has been found, but there's like no way to confirm any of it's from the plane. So I don't know. I feel like something's kind of amiss. Again, when I say intuition, I probably shouldn't say that because everybody with an internet connection has, an intuition. And when you say you have an intuition on something, it's really not it's not really a good argument, because like here, the bottom line is this. I've been to how many UFO conferences? Lots of them. And I see pictures, I hear stories, and I go into like a talk and listen to a UFO story and just think this is total nonsense. This person does they're making this up. And then you'll hear other people talking and saying things like, wow, that was really credible. My intuition tells me this person was right. So you got to be really careful when you say things like this. But I don't know, again, my intuition says it probably went to Diego Garcia. US, UK, there was a military exercise that was occurring where the plane reportedly disappeared. And then there's a base in the middle of literally nowhere where the plane mysteriously went. And they had tried to, the media and governments had tried to say that the pilot had flown a simulation in his home simulator where the endpoint was somewhere down around here. But like, to me, it doesn't make any sense. That I can't say I can put my brain into the head of anybody else, let alone some Malaysian airline pilot. But if you're going to hijack a plane and you're going to crash it, and pilots have done this before, but if you're going to do something like that, why you would turn the flight around, fly it, right back over land where it could have been intercepted by the military if they clearly were aware, they had the data, like, hey, there goes the plane that's missing. We have the data. It wasn't intercepted, and then they just let it fly into the middle of literally nowhere for, what was it, 6 hours? Just 6 hours until the fuel was exhausted and then crashed the plane. This doesn't make any sense at all. In fact, that to me is as crazy as a theory as there's a bunch of orbs that made it disappear. This doesn't make any sense. And if it was hijacked and maybe it was flown in the opposite direction, maybe it was flown, I believe it was Jeff Wise who theorized, it's an aviation journalist. He had some admittedly wacky theories. He seemed to be pretty objective, but he had some pretty wacky theories. But MH370 flew to the Middle East was one of the theories. I don't think he's the only one that said that, but based on the potentiality for where this plane could have gone, here is a general mapping area. It could have flown all the way up to Uzbekistan, pretty far away. And everybody wants to blame everybody else, right? It was the Russians did it, the Chinese did it. There isn't a lot of like, oh, the Americans did it or the British did it. There's not a lot of that, which again makes me really suspicious. It's like, hey, the Russians did it. Hey, the Chinese did it. But the Russians and the Chinese don't have military bases right where the plane supposedly flew for 6 hours and disappeared. So it sounds to me, it's another one of those things where it's like anti-Russian, anti-Chinese propaganda, kind of the intuition I get to make people convinced that, sure, someone buys the Russian or the Chinese theory. I don't. I think it was, if it was anything, it was probably the U.S. or the U.K. I mean, I just want to understand how you can be conducting. Let's take a look at this. Was it the South China Sea? How you can be conducting a military exercise. I guess maybe it was the Gulf, technically the Gulf of Malaysia. Let's look this up on a map so we can get a clear picture of what we're looking at here. I'd have to go back to this map. But like how you can be conducting a military exercise here in the Gulf of Thailand that opens up into here. The plane went missing here. There was a military exercise going on around there. They had 2 AWACS in the area that were reported, and nobody saw anything. Nobody reported anything. Well, actually, there were reports. They just don't get talked about much. There was reportedly an oil rig worker who saw a fireball in the sky, but that could have been a comet. I think that probably one of the most important details that was like totally ignored in the documentary and in everything I've read is that there was a plane 30 minutes ahead of MH370 that was flying to Tokyo. And around the time the plane disappeared, this pilot said that they had like radio contact for a moment, and there was like people were speaking. So I don't think the plane blew up, and if it did, it certainly didn't blow up here. And whether it blew up or didn't blow up, wherever it went missing, however it went missing, you're telling me the military didn't see it? There's 2 AWACS in the area. There's military exercises. Nobody saw that. It just doesn't make any sense. And so when you start to kind of build the case, it was the Russians that did it, the Chinese that did it. Okay, well, there was a military exercise in the area. There was a pilot that was going to Tokyo just ahead of MH370 that heard, static and heard a voice on that frequency, reportedly contact with that plane, if I remember that correctly. So there's a lot of stuff happening there where you've got an indication that there probably was some kind of military involvement. And then when the plane, let's break it down. Let's break it down again. Okay. So let's look at it like this. So the plane takes off from here, and I've got that. Let's see if I can find that map. Where's my map at? Okay. This is one of the maps. So the plane, this is where it would have went. Let me pull it back. Okay. So the plane took off here, disappeared here, flew back this way, flew this way, and then went south and just kept going south until it ran out of fuel somewhere around here and then went into the ocean. And everybody's so excited to like blame the Russians. Oh, the Russians did it. Hey, maybe the Russians did it and it went up this way. It went the other way, right? It went the other way. It went up here maybe to Uzbekistan or one of these countries that had the fuel to get there. Okay. And then they find this little piece somewhere over here. But considering that there was blame placed on the Russians, blame placed on the Chinese, reportedly one of the family members got a contact from someone in the intelligence community who said that the Americans know exactly what happened to the plane. And then you got two recorded AWACS that are monitoring the area. You've got a military exercise in the area. You got a pilot going to Tokyo, I'm assuming from the same airport, but coming from Malaysia, I believe, who said that they heard something on the radio. So maybe the communications weren't fully jammed or something got through. And then the plane goes south, 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 and ends up in an area, according to data from a UK company, that an area where there's a US UK military installation. Again, this show is not really planned tonight. I just had details and I wanted to discuss them. But the more that I'm saying this out loud, now I'm starting to think, yeah, it probably was a US UK, maybe Australian joint operation. I don't know if Australia was involved. It could have been a lot of countries involved. It just seems really, really weird. It feels really weird if it wasn't a military operation. And I mean, the level of sophistication that would be needed to pull something like this off, it's a military operation is what it feels like, is what it sounds like. I just feel like that's probably the most logical, rational explanation to the whole thing. And then for the record, Diego Garcia is here. So here's Malaysia. The plane goes missing. If you're just listening to this, look on a map. North of Malaysia, the plane goes missing. There's a military exercise. They said there's two AWACS monitoring the area. Then the plane goes back over Malaysia, reportedly over a military installation without scrambling jets. That's suspicious. And then it goes up this way. That's the Malacca Strait. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Up to the Andaman Sea and begins to turn into the Bay of Bengal and then into the Indian Ocean and then just goes south, 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 and then disappears. But you've got all this military activity here and military activity here, and then I think that's probably the answer. But we have a lot more to discuss tonight, so we'll go further into these details. Looks like Mike D just joined us in the chat. Mike, thank you for joining us on the show tonight. I think that probably one of the weirdest things, I was just looking at the chat and thinking, one of the weirdest things is that the families, the cell phones of some of the family members kept ringing as if the phones were still on. And that was the case, I think, years even after. So that's really weird. I mean, it could have been only one or two, but that's kind of a very weird thing too. Let's see what we have in the chat room. Mike joined us. Everybody in the chat room enjoying the show tonight. Antonio just joined us. Hello, Antonio. Thank you for joining us on TST Radio tonight. Mike says, too messy to just be a military exercise. Now, Mike, are you referring to what we're discussing, or are you talking about something else? I'm not saying exercise. I was saying that if it was anything, it makes sense that it was a military operation and that the data doesn't have to even be tampered with. But like with most intelligence ops or military ops, you got a lot of disinformation and a lot of confusion. And I don't know what the relationship is between the U.S. military and countries like Malaysia, but I'm pretty sure that whatever was going on there, the U.S. had total control of the situation. 6G agenda in the chat says, is the video of it disappearing real? Well, maybe we should talk about that, because that is supposed to be the only piece of hard evidence that I think is about as credible as this other image of the wing. There's no, the serial numbers don't match up, and the ID plate is gone. So let's look at some of those pictures, shall we? Let me pull this up for you. Let's see how we should do this. I believe this was on, let me go to X, because X has all the videos. There's so many of these videos. It's kind of annoying, frankly. Let me pull up, let me just pull up my video, and then I'll pull up these other videos here in just a moment. Okay, yeah, so this is, all right, here we go. This is the videos. There's two videos. This is one of the videos. You can see on your screen, plane is moving, orbs start appearing around it, start rotating, and then it disappears. You can watch the video. It eventually disappears. It's gone. Gone, just like that. Just disappears. Now, when you watch that, what do you think? Listeners in the chat want to know. Other people around the world share this video. It's a big video. This one was shared by Concerned Citizen, you know, the guy that doesn't understand weather, who doesn't understand that there are clouds, who doesn't understand that there's fog, and there's moisture and different temperatures. This is the guy that doesn't understand that there's flooding that happens in the world, and that's not weather control. It's normal flooding. There's actually less floods that occur and less fires and all that. This is the same guy, so I don't trust this individual at all. But everybody's shared this. Anybody who's anybody in the conspiracy community has shared this at one point or another. I think I even shared it once because I didn't buy it. Here, let's watch the plane go again. Orbs, gone. Now, let me ask you this question. There's radio communications with the plane. I'm just going to give you my interpretation of this. There's radio communications with the pilot up until the moment that it actually goes missing, or disappears, at least from radar. There's radio communications. There's nothing being communicated about some kind of object approaching the plane. Now, after the fact, once it goes into this kind of gray area as the airspace air traffic controllers are switching over, let's say that's supposedly when the orbs appeared. Why would, let me try to figure this out. Okay, why would aliens wait until the air traffic controllers said, good night, we're switching you over to the next air traffic controllers, essentially, so the plane goes dark for a moment, and then that's when they take the plane? That's when it happens? And someone is moving the camera to watch the plane get taken by these aliens? Okay, that alone doesn't make any sense. Plus, there was, again, a pilot that heard static and somebody talking around that time. And it didn't say anything about aliens. And then you have to consider, if that, let's say that was the case, that aliens did this, you're telling me that there's, like, the plane did turn around. There's no debris, so it got taken. It turned, but it also turned around. There's so many different data points, but there's no indication of, like, a distress signal, because these things followed it for a while. So you'd assume that there might have been, like, a distress. Maybe the pilots didn't see them. I don't know. There's no evasive maneuvers. It just keeps going straight and then it disappears. Well, the thing is, if you watch the video, I'm going to get this off my screen before I lose all credibility. Ryan pulled the video up. It's a fake video. Let me show you something, okay? Let me show you these images. What you're looking at here on your screen is, to the left is the video I just showed you, and to the right is stock footage. And Here's another example of that. The video, stock footage. This is the stock footage. Look on YouTube, you can find it, Killing Time Ending, 3DO. If you watch the whole video, it's 2 minutes, 58 seconds. You can watch this footage from the plane occur in a stock footage video from the 1990s. So that alone is evidence that it's fake. Secondarily, the evidence that it's fake is from the stabilization issues. I went to film school, so like this, I actually know what I'm talking about. It's from the stabilization issues in the actual video itself. This was something I always sucked at. When I had to track or trace something in a video edit, I was horrible with After Effects. And if you don't trace it or track, I think that's the correct word. If you don't trace it or track it correctly, then you end up with like things just bounce around because it's not moving. Anybody ever watch a video? It's like a really bad animation where someone like edits something on top of something else. You have to track it. And if you don't, things just jump around. Well, that's precisely what you see in the video. If you watch the video in slow motion, you watch the contrails of the plane go like this. Yeah, that doesn't happen unless someone doesn't know what they're doing when they're editing the video. So it's fake. That's it. There's stock footage. There's rendering issues. There's, I think, layering issues. It's fake. It's fake. It's fake. It's fake. It's fake. This isn't even a matter of like, I'm going to be objective and not give an opinion. It's just objectively fake. There's stock footage. There's rendering issues. And I believe other video experts have pointed out that if you watch it as the plane is moving, nothing else in the frame moves. So it's just the plane. It's fake. That's it. Okay, it's fake. And I really wanted that to be a bigger segment than it was, but that seems to be it. It's just totally fake. Stock footage from the 90s, rendering issues, and it matches completely. But you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of the video that Jeremy Corbell took at his house out. Didn't he take it at his house? He took it out there at 29 Palms, where there's a military installation close by. And that's the UFO that he showed you. Oh, the triangular UFO. He got it right in his backyard. A UFO documentarian in his backyard. There's a triangle UFO. What are the chances, folks? So he gets that, and then it turns out that what that video actually was it was literally flares. Now the Phoenix lights were not flares. That was a BS lie. But what was seen in 29 Palms that Corbell shared, fake. It was flares, and it was, I believe, an inverted image. So I think you had to revert it or invert it again, and then you just lay it over the UFO video. It's the same exact video. In the same way that Louis Elizondo sold a giant flying saucer, and it turns out it wasn't a flying saucer. It was a irrigation circle somewhere in the American West. I think it was in Colorado. So when you look at a lot of UFO videos, like the triangle of one of the UFO grifters, although he's not really a grifter because that's a small time swindle, he's a big time swindler. He also might be on coke. I don't know. He definitely has a giant ego. He has he has a camera team that follows him with like 5 cameras. They don't even use 5 cameras when they have explosions in movies usually, or at least maybe they have 5 cameras. Maybe that's the maximum. Unless it's like a multi-million, maybe they have like 7 or 8 for a multi-million-dollar explosion or something like this. But this guy has a camera crew that follow. He is just, I can't stand that guy. But he fakes UFO videos is the point. Verifiably so. And I'm pretty sure that the jellyfish UFO was like trash. I'm pretty sure. So when you see that the UFO community fakes UFO videos all the time, including the people that go to Congress and testify, you start thinking, oh, they're not really trying to disclose anything. In fact, they're trying to close real investigation into these things. That's right. I think it's the opposite. I don't think people like, I don't think Jeremy Corbell is trying to get the truth. I think he's trying to do the opposite, frankly, and is so desperate that they'll make things up that are so fake. It's just laughable. So flares that are just flares, and trash that's trash, and irrigation circles that are just irrigation circles. But if you compare that, I think it's funny sometimes people might listen to me talk for 2-3 minutes about something like this, and I can't stand this. Always talking about these UFO people. Just give them a break. It's like, well, that's not the point. The point is, if you understand that, and then you apply that to this MH370 video, and you can find the rendering issues, maybe layering issues, movement issues, and you can find stock footage from the 90s that aligns directly with the portal opening. Yeah, it's fake. It's really fake. And it's really disgusting that people fake that, because somewhere in the world, somebody is sitting behind a computer faking a video to exploit the deaths of hundreds of people, assumed that they all died. I would assume that they're all dead. But exploiting those people's deaths for some clicks on the internet. Like, you have to be a real low-life piece of trash. Like Mike D said in the chat, like Fat Lou. Fat Lion Lou Elizondo. A fat lying piece of trash. That's what you have to be to do stuff like that. To sell irrigation circles as UFOs, admit you never vetted the source, and then even when you're caught with it, you're like, well, yeah, it's fake, but it also helps us to learn that there are real things like that. But you faked it. You faked it. And then, of course, Mr. UFO documentarian who just conveniently films UFOs in his backyard that happen to be flares from a military base. You'd think that an expert would know that, but they are lying frauds. Like all the others. Stephen Greer's a lying fraud, and this is not the point of tonight's show, but you kind of get the idea. By the way, let me make a note. Since Mike D is here, Mike D, did you know that last week after the show, Emery Smith had his website store, Cosmic Market, taken down, and it wasn't for maintenance. And I think that they did put it back up. I believe I just checked. It is back up. But now I'm wondering, if we go back through the website, I wonder, did they change some of those things that we had pointed out? So that might be something you want to look into, Mike. Let's see if they changed any of those obvious fake nonsensical descriptions of those containers of liquids. We should go and look at that again on another show. So there's some homework for you, Mike. I'm going to do the same thing. But they took the website down literally within an hour of our show last week. That's crazy. And then it was like 3 or 4 days and they put it back up. And I think they changed some things. So maybe they added some reviews. Maybe they changed some of the more obvious scams. So we're going to have to look into that. Anyway, MH370, that's the point of tonight's show. So let's look at some of the more details of that. We've looked at some of the data, where it apparently or supposedly went. We've looked at the recent stories about the Bermuda Triangle and the Dragon Triangle, which I believe just last year, the Dragon Triangle was still considered a very dangerous place to be, a very dangerous place to go because of all the ships and the planes that go missing there. And historically as well, it's not just like a recent thing. And give you an idea of where the Dragon's Triangle is. Let me pull that up for you too. jumping back and forth between audio shows and video shows is kind of something I'm used to only audio. It's cool that I can show you everything that I'm saying, though. This is roughly the area of the Dragon Triangle, roughly, just like the Bermuda Triangle. So anyway, there is the Dragon's Triangle, or the Devil's Sea, or sometimes they call it the Devil's Triangle, but that's also a name for Bermuda, so you have to kind of be careful you don't get the two confused. That's all recent in the news. As for the theory about the semiconductor, we're going to talk about that in a moment because I think that's important. I'm not convinced that is the answer, but I think it's nonetheless important. So I think we've worked our way. We worked through the video. We worked through some of the theories. And here is, okay, so the Bermuda Triangle stories are recent. There's recent Bermuda Triangle stories in the last week. There's also a recent story about MH370. And so that's kind of serendipitous in regard to, I've not done a show on this ever. And here suddenly there are stories about it in the news again. This is the Economic Times. Malaysia Airlines MH370 mystery nearing an end. Expert outlines step that could crack case. And then there is another story. MH370 mystery could be solved with chilling underwater boom as groundbreaking new search looms. This was just less than a year ago. Let's look at this one first. It says, an underwater boom could hold the key to locating the wreckage of a missing MH370, bringing an end to the 10-year mystery. The Malaysian Airlines flight vanished around 38 minutes after leaving Kuala Lumpur Airport in southern Malaysia in 2014. 227 passengers. Somebody in the chat was asking about that. 227 passengers and 12 crew members. Where they ended up remains unknown. The official account indicates the plane made an unusual U-turn, flew over Malaysia, then veered northwest near Penang Island before crossing the Andaman Sea and then eventually going south. Now, Underwater Robotics Company has unveiled that they have submitted a new research proposal to the Malaysian government to find the plane. Reports suggest that Ocean Infinity could begin their search as early as November if plans are signed off. Dr. Usama Qadri, a professor of mathematics and engineering at Cardiff University, believes that hydrophones, underwater microphones, could help in locating the final resting place of the ill-fated jet. In a study analyzing hundreds of hours of hydrophone data from past plane crashes in the world's oceans, he suggests that a single split-second noise might be the last remaining trace of MH370, which I'm pretty sure was the same tech used for the what was that story about the submarine that went down to see the Titanic? And remember how weird that was, where CNN and these news outlets were doing like air checks on air, quote unquote air checks on air. How much air do these people have left? While they were doing air checks on air, very strange. And I believe they had evidence, military, naval evidence of it would have been an implosion of the submarine. So I'm guessing that the technology is very similar here, hydrophones. But that's the theory. Now, let me go out on my own conspiratorial branch for a moment. I'm not saying it is, I'm saying if this was a military operation, and if the plane was taken to a military base, and if this investigation from small companies and big companies keeps going and people keep demanding answers, at this point, the Malaysian 370 incident is almost more of a mystery than 9/11, which we still don't have confirmation of who was responsible for that. You can, the hijackers. Most of them were still alive. And yes, the U.S. military had something to do with it, but it was probably Israel working with the U.S. military, or at least not the whole military. We're talking like it was carried off with military precision. We're talking very high level, probably just like the assassination of president. But the point is, if that did happen, I think that at some point we probably will get evidence, and the evidence won't be like, oh, look, they found a piece of a plane on some island off the coast of Madagascar, and there's no identification plate conveniently, and there's no confirmation of serial numbers conveniently, or rather, maybe inconveniently, because the serial numbers did not match, most of them. I wouldn't be surprised if at some point we can't actually see it, but we'll hear, oh, we found the whole plane underwater, in pieces, of course. We found the debris field. And it won't explain how many parts of the plane are designed to float and how we've never found them and we've never found confirmation of them. It won't explain much of the mysteries. It'll just be like, hey, look, we used high tech and we found the plane underwater, and it confirms all the conspiracies are false. All the theories are false. And then they'll do, I don't know, depending on where it goes. I mean, what's out there in the Indian Ocean is just like trenches like the Grand Canyon, immense pressure. And I mean, it's terrifying. The ocean's terrifying. But whatever they find, I'm sure eventually there'll be an announcement that they've probably found it. And if people keep pushing this issue, I think there might be an acknowledgement at some point, like, we found it officially, we've confirmed it, and you can rest assured that this is what happened. And I'm not sure I'll be able to believe that. Just not sure. Especially if it did actually crash. I mean, you have to consider this too. Like, it could have been flown to Diego Garcia, and then they could have crashed it after they removed the cargo or the people that they needed to remove. I'm not saying they could have killed everybody and then crashed the plane, destroyed it. They could have scrapped it. There's lots of possibilities if something like that level of a conspiracy were true, which I'm not even saying that it is. I'm just saying that it's possible based on the people that are potentially involved with this. My point was, I suspect that if people keep pushing this issue, eventually they're going to find it, so everybody shuts up. If people get too close to the truth, which, hey, usually when we do shows like this, it's usually serendipitous. We're like 2 days ahead, and then there's like an announcement. The stuff that's never been discovered is discovered. So maybe something like that'll happen. And I think that's just intuitive. That's not me predicting the future. It's just like, hey, I should do this show. And then something like this happens. We get these stories that there's new research, new investigation. And I found this after I prepared tonight's show. Ismail Hamad, chief engineer at Egypt Air, told media that the pursuit of wreckage in the southern Indian Ocean might not be the only path forward. According to him, both time and financial resources could be saved by reassessing where the aircraft may have gone down. That's actually a really good point. That would be probably a better option. Where did it actually go down? Because they were searching forever north of Malaysia. Then they're like, oh, actually, it's east. Actually, it's south. We have no idea. How do you lose an airliner in the 21st century? That alone is a very disturbing thing to think about. Let me go to the chat real fast, too. I haven't gone to the chat for a few minutes. Antonio says, Judy Wood seems right on target with that. I agree. I think Judy Wood has a very, very, very... She's not very nice as a human being. She's very mean. She's very, very mean. But I think she's right in a lot of ways. I've read her textbook. I think she's right. I used to be friends with Richard Gage. I don't think he's wrong. I think it could have been a combination of many things. In fact, if you were going to carry out such an operation like that, you would definitely do multiple different things. You'd probably have multiple teams doing multiple different things. You'd probably have people in the building lining the support columns to be blown while you used other forms of technology. It's very similar to MH370 because in the 21st century, not only can you lose an airliner, but you can lose an airliner in the middle of 2 AWACS, a military exercise, over top of military bases, and with dozens of countries and hundreds of planes and ships looking for it, and you can't find it. Because everybody's confused. And even now, 11 years later, the chief engineer at Egypt Air is saying maybe we should just reassess where it went down. We're not even 100% sure it went down in the southern Indian Ocean. How can you still not know that 11 years later? You would fill the conversation with as much data as possible, as much what if as possible, which is what that documentary on Netflix is really all about. It's like as much data as you can, as everybody's got, like, this is the answer, this is the answer, this is the answer, this is the answer. I mean, I think the weirdest thing about that documentary was that the French guy, some intelligence asset who was confirmed by French media as an intelligence asset, although I can't necessarily say I trust the journalist's motivation because she was hawking a book that had a lot of loose ends, but some intelligence agent came to them because this dad was pushing on the media. So then an intelligence agent comes to him and says, "Oh yeah, the Americans know." But that's also maybe back to my point. Whereas if you keep pushing it, eventually someone's like, "Oh yeah, we found it, sure." Or maybe someone's like, "We need to tell the truth." And then you just kind of covertly leak this to somebody and say, "I can't tell you anything else, but like they know what happened to it." So something to that effect. And I'm also laughing, Antonio, because I interviewed her one time, but she is not nice. You know why she's not nice? I understand why she's not nice, because she had her reputation destroyed. That's why she's not nice. And she's a scientist, and scientists aren't always nice. And also because the reason that I don't think she's nice is because when I had reached out to her for another interview 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, maybe 7 years ago, 8 years ago, I was reading I had read her book. It's a textbook, and I read it, and I'm right at the end. So I'm like 2, 3 chapters. It's really close. And I thought, rather than finishing this right now, like in the next week or two, it was taking a while to read it. It's a textbook. I'll just email her now and say, "Hey, I'm pretty much done with the book. Going to finish it, but let's go ahead and set up an interview. By the time we interview, I'll have been done with the book and taken notes." I took like 60 pages of notes too. I told her. And she said, "The fact that you haven't finished it means that you don't want the truth." And I don't associate with people like that. I was like, "Are you kidding me? Not only have I interviewed before, but I read the damn book. I'm just emailing you to set something up." She just was not very nice, and I got into it with her, so that was the end of that. But I still think she's probably closer to the truth. I think she's still relatively close to the truth. Mike D says, "Very, very limited photos on the web of the actual base." Are you talking about Diego Garcia? Is that what you're talking about? Diego Garcia. All right. Back to the article. 239 people on board. Is Mike, who said that in the chat? Mike said. Who said 239 people on board? Is that Mike? I'm trying to look at the chat. Oh, yeah, Mike says, "A big damn plane, 239 passengers." Well, right now, Mike, the 239 passengers are on Zeta Reticuli being probed by aliens, because that makes the most sense. Anyway, Ismaili Hamid is right. After 11 years, you probably should reassess it. Probably should reassess the situation. I don't understand how it could have been hijacked, because when there's a hijacking, usually, like, terrorism is defined as an act of violence, politically motivated violence. And that act of violence is intended to obtain something from whoever you're conducting the act of terrorism against. Governments use terrorism too against other governments. So you blow something up, you kill somebody, kill some civilians, whatever, and okay, we're going to keep doing this until we get X. Sometimes terrorism is just to scare people, but there has to be a motivation behind it. Like, I don't understand what the motivation could be. And like, what is Malaysian Airlines? It's not something people were talking about. It's not like a big thing. Now, there was a Malaysian Airlines that went down that was reportedly shot down by Russia. Remember that story? I'll show you that too while I'm talking here. But there was a Malaysian Airlines shot down by Russia. So that, of course, makes people think the Russians, the Russians. That was MH17. But, you know, everything's blamed on Russia, so I don't know if I believe that Russia actually shot it down, frankly. I don't know what I believe, but I'm tired of everybody blaming Russia for everything. I mean, if Russia really was the bad guy that people say it was, I'm pretty sure that the situation would be a lot different than it is. I just think it's totally ridiculous that Russia, right? It's always Russia, China. Well, Russia doesn't have a military base in the part of the ocean where the plane went missing. Okay. Russia doesn't have didn't have the data set with like an ally of the same. It was the UK. It's a co-military base. It's not a Russian base. It's not a Chinese base. It doesn't make any sense. Everything's Russia. It just doesn't compute. It doesn't make sense. Stop blaming Russia for shit. It's just annoying. It's stupid. It's like blaming aliens. Really, that's how stupid it is. Russia. Everything's Russia. It's like, Jesus Christ. Can you find somebody else to blame? Really? Should I say it? I wasn't going to say it. Maybe I tried to go a whole show without saying it. But it's like people will blame Muslims, Russia. What about the Jews? You can't say that. Well, if I can blame the Muslims and the Russians, I can blame the Jews. I can blame anybody for that matter. I get tired of this double standard. God, it's so annoying. But if it was hijacked, like, what's the purpose? Why would the plane be hijacked by Russia and nothing happens? Like, if MH17 was shot down by the Russians, there's debris, there's pieces of it, there's luggage, there's shoes, there's clothes, there's bodies. Even if it's an accident, what could the motivation for terrorism be if there's no evidence and there's real suspicious military activity revolving around the story? I don't think that it was terrorism. I think that's a lazy excuse. Unless the terrorists hijacked the plane, didn't know how to fly it, and accidentally crashed it after 6 hours of flying with fuel. Doesn't really make any sense. That is about as dumb as the pilot wanted to commit suicide, so he flew the plane south as long as he could until he ran out of fuel and then decided to crash it into the ocean. That makes no sense. And reportedly, the pilot's at-home simulator, they reported it as he had flown a path south. That's what it was reported. But I think also reportedly that's not what actually happened. It was something to do with like a cursor he had moved on the simulator. And plus, that is like I think the FBI knew that. The FBI knew that for how long? Like 2-3 years or something. And then the FBI is like, oh, yeah, he did a simulation of it. Maybe. You waited 2 years to tell people that? I think it was 2 years. It's ridiculous. No, I don't buy it. I don't believe it. I mean, anytime this happens to a plane, people blame the pilot. I get that. I just don't think it makes any sense. I don't think it was terrorism, at least traditional terrorism. The point is, though, the chief engineer at Egypt Air said we should probably reinvestigate where the plane went down. And this might be kind of what I'm hinting at here. There's a call to let's look at it again. And there's a lot of people making observations about this. And we're going to figure it out eventually. And so the people, if there were people involved, they're going to say, okay, we got to figure this out. We need to have like confirmable evidence of something, quote unquote. And then they're just going to give you something. Hey, maybe Jimmy Church can help us find it. He found UFO bases in his backyard. Maybe Jimmy, you listening, Jimmy? Maybe Jimmy can help us find this plane. As long as it's near an Indian Ocean UFO base, Jimmy will be able to find it like that. All right, let's move on. That guy just makes me upset. I can't even laugh about it. Can't even joke about it. It's all fraud. It's all a scam. Anyway, these are recent stories. So the point is, there are recent stories about MH370. They're going to maybe reassess it where it went down, which would be the second or third time that's happened? 11 years later, and we just can't find it. Don't know what happened to it. To me, it's definitely suspicious, but whatever that means. When I say suspicious, I mean like we don't have any clue, and there's too many variables, and there's just not enough. I don't know if there's enough information. Mike D is correct. I feel the same way, Mike. Something is odd about that base. Gives me creeps. It does. Mike, do you want to join the show? If you want to join the show, let me know. I'll send you a link. You can jump in the chat with me real quick if you'd like to join. There are other people in the chat that I can trust, but I have to be careful bringing people on to the show because I don't know everybody personally. I'd like to do the call-in again, but we can't do that under the circumstances right now. Samantha joined us in the chat. Hello, Samantha. Thank you for joining the show tonight. And King Kraken says, was it Russia? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that he's joking. I think it's about as much Russia as it is China. And, when the FBI has the data and doesn't release it for several years and then releases it and it's real shady, and when you have an intelligence op coming to one of the family members and saying, yeah, the Americans know, whether that's true or that's disinfo, and when you have everybody blaming Russia, China, it's like, where's the central data point where all that's coming? Where's the central emanation point where all that's coming from? It's coming from the United States. It's coming probably from the UK that showed us where the plane supposedly went because of satellite data. And they're not necessarily lying. But again, what is down there where that satellite data is? A US, UK military installation. Okay, as for the semiconductor story, this is important, and this should be discussed. If you want to read more about that, here's a story from BBC. Not that you can trust the BBC, but what I found on the secretive tropical island they don't want you to see. This is Diego Garcia. And also confirmation. Highly secretive UK-US military base. Which, of course, if it's like Area 51, it's shrouded in mystery. And maybe we could start a new conspiracy theory. Diego Garcia is where they took the wreckage from Roswell. Will you pay me now? Linda Moulton Howe told me that, so it's true. Please give me money. Linda Moulton Howe told me it's true. Trust me. Anyway, point is, let's go and look at the semiconductor story. I'm trying to find the link that I had to that. Okay, so this is basically the semiconductor story. Believe it or don't believe it, I'm not sure. This would be the motivation. So we've found maybe like what would you call this? We found evidence that there clearly is a link from the blame game to the military exercise to the fact that there's this military base that's run by the to countries that had the data and then also kind of like sat on the data about the pilot simulation. Very weird. That was reportedly the FBI. So when you put all that together, we have like evidence that there clearly is, there's definitely some suspicion here. And then what's the motivation for it? And the motivation reportedly is, it has something to do with a semiconductor, with a patent, or with people on the plane. Which, of course, let's just say this is a logical assessment, a very logical assessment, because regardless of how it went missing, the fact is there's definitely a logical conclusion that one can come to, that who was on the plane? Who was, was there an important person on the plane? Was this person responsible for, I don't know, voting on something? Or think about the Federal Reserve. Who opposed the Federal Reserve? Who was on that boat that we call the Titanic? People that opposed the Federal Reserve. So did the Titanic sink as a result of a conspiracy to murder the people that were opposed to the Federal Reserve? Evidence kind of implies that, yes. Really quick, Mike D in the chat, your email has vanished from my email. So please send me an email, and then I will respond with the link. And you can jump into the chat. Although I wonder, even for other listeners, I wonder if I could put the link in the chat and people could, that might be too dangerous to do that. But Mike, send me an email, Mike, and I'll send you the link back really fast. Anyway, it's a logical assessment to think, who was on the plane? Okay, who's on the plane? And if there's any person on the plane with like a connection to government or a connection to a corporation, who's on the plane? This is a logical assessment. I'm not saying that the only one, it's a logical assessment. And basically the story goes like this. MH370, there were 239 passengers, there were 12 crew, and there were 20 employees. Now I've tried to confirm this. I'm pretty sure it's accurate. 20 employees from a US tech company called Freescale Semiconductor. And for those of you who don't know what semiconductor is, I'm not a tech person, but it's basically a powerful microchip. And it can be definitely used in military defense, among other things. Okay. So 20 employees from this company that makes semiconductors. Of the 20 freelance employees on MH370, 12 were from Malaysia. 8 were from China. The theory goes like this. The staff members knew things that the U.S. government wanted to keep secret and did not want the Chinese to have access to, because the plane was flying to Beijing. So the U.S. supposedly hijacked the plane and took it to a base called Diego Garcia. Other versions of the story say that the Chinese took control of the plane and then disposed of the people after the fact. Other people believe that the Iranian government had something to do with it, which again, it's the boy that cried wolf. Every time somebody blames Iran, I think, oh, the CIA did it. When someone says Iran did it, I'm like, oh, Israel definitely did it. When someone's like Russia did it, I'm like, oh, the US government definitely did it. China did it. I'm like, maybe, but the CIA probably did it. Because they just get tired of hearing that it's always somebody else. Like it's always another country. It's always another government. It's always. And I'm sure they do the same thing in China if I were to speak Chinese and listen to Chinese media, I'm sure it's the same thing. It's like America, America, America. And I'm sure there's some Chinese version of my show where the Chinese guy is sitting there behind a microphone and he's like, I'm tired of everything being blamed on the Americans. Our government does. And then they break into his apartment, kill him on the live stream, and then they scrub it from the internet. There's probably somebody like that too. I just get really tired of it. Cynthia says there's been plenty of them that have died in fiery plane and car crashes. Are you talking about semiconductor company employees? And could you have exact examples of these cases? I mean, people definitely die under mysterious circumstances for all sorts of things. Anyway, I just sent Mike the link, so maybe Mike will jump in here in a second. Anyway, Freescale confirmed their employees were traveling on the plane. However, the conspiracy about the patent for like a semiconductor chip, we had heard this a lot. This is really this is the first thing I learned about this story years ago. And when I heard that, I was like, I'm just so tired of the Reddit conspiracies. Like, I believe in free speech, but I want to see Reddit burned. I'm so sick of it. It's so toxic. I can't stand it. Doesn't mean that there's not truth to the theory. I just get tired of like Reddit is the source of people's information. And then when I tell people I do my own research, they're like, oh, you must just read Reddit. I'm like, that is really insulting. I don't read Reddit. I've never used Reddit for anything, ever. People have sent me links. I've clicked on it, and it doesn't open. I don't have the app, and the website, for some reason, doesn't work on my phone. I don't want Reddit. I don't trust Reddit. I don't care how honest it is. Or how honest someone is. I don't like Reddit. I just don't trust it. So I automatically dismiss stuff like that when I see it. I just don't believe it. Open to the idea. I just don't trust Reddit as a source because I'm pretty sure it's filled with intel agents. However, the patent for the semiconductor chip, though, was not a military patent, as some people have suggested. Instead, it was a non-military patent that was intended to optimize the number of circuits that could be placed on a semiconductor or semiconductor material. That doesn't mean the military didn't want it. But I was also wondering, like, if that's the case, why couldn't you just intercept the people on the way to the airport? I mean, maybe there was too many of them. If it had something to do with the quote mysterious cargo, why couldn't you just intercept that before it got to the plane or like at the airport? Maybe you wanted to do it on the hush hush, the down low, so that the Malaysian authorities weren't aware of it. I don't know. But it does seem really suspicious that if there are 20 people on board this plane from this company, and it's flying to China, and there's technology on board that the U.S. government doesn't want China to have access to, and they were suspicious of something, that the Chinese were going to like talk to these employees, and there's 2 AWACS monitoring the area, and the plane vanishes, and there's a military exercise in the area, like on 9/11, and the plane changes course and flies somewhere else, and they try to blame the pilot, they try to blame the Russians, and they try to blame the Chinese. They try to blame everybody else. And then the data shows us that the plane reportedly goes south, 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 and it ends up in an area where there is a U.S. military base, a U.S.-UK military base, and it turns out the UK is also the other country that provided the Inmarsat data that told us where to look, where now the Egyptian airline chief engineer is saying, hey, we should reassess this. We don't know where it went. But there is Diego Garcia in the middle of absolutely nowhere, which again was my first thought. I was like watching this documentary thinking within the first few minutes, it went to a military base. That was the only conclusion I could come to. All right, unexpectedly, let's take a quote call tonight from Mike D in the chat, our good friend and co-host. Mike, thank you for clicking the link and joining us on the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Ryan. This is Richard Greer. You talked about me last week. I didn't appreciate it.
Richard, did you get the photographs from the alien pictures we sent you?
Listen, I took those myself. I saw the aliens. I talked to the aliens. Those are legit pictures. So stop it.
Can you believe Emery Smith's website got taken down after our show?
Yeah, someone probably called the FDA on him. You can't just sell blue water and not put the ingredients to the public on a website. Sell it.
Yes. Well, they did put it back up after a week, about a week. It's a week now from the last show, but I think they changed some stuff. So maybe it's a coincidence. Maybe it's because of what we did. Anyway, you have thoughts on this?
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah. I think you're right. Total type of military operation, especially the location of that base. It's like, I think it's 1,000 miles from land where it's at. It's UK, US joint military, which really doesn't happen very often where two countries share the same military base. So that's in itself a little strange. That article that you had is actually a great article, that BBC article. I was looking at that too. There seems to be like a migrant population on that island too, that that their people are saying are being abused on that island.
Interesting, because I was just going to joke. I was just going to joke with you and say, what kind of experiments are they doing down there on this shady base? They're probably doing like human hybrid experiments or alien tests.
Yeah, you just passed it where this people were kind of sitting out in front with their faces blurred. Those are some of the migrant people that are asking for help that are on that island. That the migrant camp, the migrants there are very close to the military base. It's very, very strange. Very strange.
I think it makes the most sense. I wasn't planning to give like an opinionated conclusion to tonight's show, but the more I thought about it, I thought, okay, so again, there's 2 AWACS monitoring the area north of Malaysia where the plane went off radar. There's a military exercise. It flew back over Malaysia, over a military base without reportedly triggering any kind of response. Then it flew out over the Bay of Bengal. Then it flew south. And the only explanation we got was that there's data from a UK company that indicates the plane. I think I still have that picture here. I can show you. Yeah, the plane went south in the direction of where this US-UK installation is. And I don't know if it's the semiconductor story, but it is suspicious that there's 20 people on board from this company. It was going to Beijing. And of course, to me, honestly, the smoking gun is like everybody wants to blame Russia and China. When our government does that kind of stuff, I think, oh yeah, the CIA did it. Oh yeah, the US military did it. I don't believe or buy that for 1 second. I think every time we blame another country and we do it so aggressively, usually that's because we've done something naughty. And plus the FBI had information on this for years and didn't disclose it. So to me, that is another smoking gun. This is extremely suspicious, and I don't have the answers, but Diego Garcia is looking pretty suspicious.
Yeah, they've lied on that base also, saying that it wasn't. There was some reporter that was looking into it a couple years back, being a CIA black site. Yeah, where they would take terrorists and do the old terrorist torture, waterboarding on them, and
that's immoral.
A representative from the UK actually confirmed that they did have terrorists there, and then the US came back and said, no, that's incorrect information. We never had terrorists on that flew that we took to that base. So someone's lying, of course, but we probably know who it is.
You know what I learned about Diego Garcia? Reportedly, Diego Garcia was used as a remote outpost for the B-2 bombers that struck Iran.
Yes, and Afghanistan too, and Afghanistan.
I knew Afghanistan from before, but I think, as well from the recent preemptive strikes on Iran.
Did you see the pictures of the actual military craft? There's a couple out there. I don't know how old they are, but the planes are all painted in that dull gray with that. There's no markings on them. I was able to find a couple on the old interwebs, and they're really strange military planes. There's no American flags on them. From what I saw, they're just painted like a dull gray. People can find them if they Google, but it's weird.
That's kind of like I've seen the Area 51 planes. They just have a little red stripe down the side, kind of like that. No markings otherwise. This is actually an article I just found here. It says, is the UK going to get drawn into the Iran-Israel thing? It's because of Diego Garcia, because it's a joint base. Interesting.
Yeah, kind of on the super secluded, easy to maybe transport drugs out of there, or even children. I think this is my personal opinion. I have no proof on it, but I think there's some shady stuff going on with Diego Garcia. I just get a weird, like you said, I get just a weird, creepy feeling about that base. It's just, it's weird. It's weird.
Now, I said this earlier. I understand some people are delusional, and they're like, my intuition's telling me that the star seed children, my intuition, the aliens are communicating through me, through the clouds to me. And then you say, I've got intuition, and people think you're crazy. But like my intuition, when I watched this Netflix documentary, I wasn't intending to do a show on it. But within the first few minutes, I just thought, well, the only explanation here, if it disappeared, there's no wreckage and nobody knows what happened to it. It had to have landed at a military base. I said it out loud to my wife. I was like, it had to land at a military base. And they mentioned Diego Garcia, and then they just kind of passed over it like, oh, that's just one conspiracy theory. Like, no, that makes, I think, the most logical, rational sense. It doesn't make sense that they would fly a plane to the middle of nowhere and crash it because it's a suicide or because it's like terrorism. That makes no sense at all. But my intuition was like, it's probably a military base. And I saw Diego Garcia, and I thought, oh, that's probably what happened. Just made the most sense to me. But
yeah, it's
the aliens told me.
Yeah, I mean, something or someone aboard that plane they wanted, and they got it.
Hey, maybe it was like the X-Files where what was that guy that lived in the silver trailer, and he had some nuclear material with him or something, and the UFO stopped the plane mid-flight, opened the door, and pulled the guy out of the plane. Remember that episode?
No.
Yeah, I think that guy's name was Max. It was an older episode, one of the original episodes. It was pretty good. Some people might remember that. Yeah, the UFO approached the plane and then stopped it mid-flight, and every time stopped, and then they like opened the door and they pulled the guy out of the plane. I think the plane crashed after that. Anyway, that's not what happened to MH370. That's an episode of the X-Files.
Yeah, that's did you talk about there's a this is a conspiracy kind of theory, kind of like the orbs making it disappear, but there was a story about someone that smuggled there was a picture that showed up on I don't know if it was a Reddit forum or some other forum. I know you personally don't like Reddit. I don't either. It's a lot of super disinfo crap, but this is years ago. Super years ago when it had a little bit more credibility. But there was a picture. It was just a black picture, but the information on the picture, you know how you can get the data points on the picture where it tells you, the coordinates of the picture. Even back then, you could get that from a picture that was taken. Well, anyway, this guy supposedly submitted this picture with a message that from a cell phone with the picture that he was aboard the plane. He was hijacked by some military group, and he was aboard the plane. He gave his name and said he was able to smuggle his phone in his ass, and that's how he was able to send the pic out with
the watch in his ass.
Yeah, well, it was a phone in his ass, and said he was drugged. And he gave his name, but I never really looked super close into it. But they did take the coordinates where he submitted the picture from, and it was 3 miles out from Diego Garcia. So I mean, That's kind of close. That's kind of close enough. But again, another psyop. You know, maybe that's as close as the picture information could get. But who knows? I don't
Yeah.
know.
You know what? For all we know, there's probably small islands all over the place. How easy it would be to hide something out here. Who knows? There's a military base out here. Who knows that? Nobody, unless
Yeah.
you're in the military or you're like a nerd or something. And there could be something else like that out here too. That's even more secretive. So
Yeah, it's the same thing with 9/11 when people ask, okay, if those planes were remotely, right, and the people were, and those were drone planes, right? There's a switch off, just like Operation Northwoods, I believe. You can
I mentioned
switch
that earlier.
Yeah, you can switch the plane mid-air, and air traffic controller wouldn't even know that you replaced the legit plane with a drone plane.
Yep.
They were practicing this. So let's just say the drone planes hit the towers. Okay, well then where did the people go, right? And then again, at a military base, but then that's a lot of people to kill. You know, it's pretty crazy. I don't put it past any government, but that's just yeah. You always ask what happened to the people. You know.
Yeah, they probably use gas chambers because those seem to be pretty efficient. Wink, wink.
It's even like
Good question.
you know, that the air stewardess CC, I forget her name. It was a black woman that recorded from the flight that to her husband saying, "Hey, the flight's been hijacked." She was at like 30,000 plus feet, like making it kind of weird that she was able to even use the cell phone. But at the end of the conversation, you can barely hear the whisper in the message that says, "It's a frame." You heard about? Have you seen that?
Yeah, I remember that. Yep. There were a lot of people that called their relatives and said weird things on 9/11. Hey, this is so and so. My name is so and so. I'm your wife.
Yeah. Yes. Isn't
Weird.
that weird? It's like almost they were forced to say the script.
Yeah, or it was. I mean, even back then, you used to get phone calls and you'd answer and say hello, and nobody would be there. And then now I said this on a show like 14 years ago. I think those phone calls are getting people's voices, and then they're using them to map the voice and like create a mirror voice, it's like a computer version of your voice. And then it turns out that's actually what those calls are doing. Like the last year, we've seen stories about that's exactly what those calls were doing. So that technology has been around for a long time. And if it's military or government tech going back to the 90s or early 2000s, you could probably you have a mirrored copy of those people's voices, and that's why it sounded so weird when they
Yeah.
called their team members. Probably wasn't even them.
I know, like me, you, and a bunch of our listeners out there would be say if they put that script in front of us, then we just knew that this was we were doomed, right? We'd yell out, "This is bullshit! This is a U.S. government operation. I'm being held. I'm going to be." Just, I mean, I guess that lady was so scared that she was brave enough to whisper it at the end, though, and a lot of other people. But I would have just screamed to high heavens, you know, because you know they're gonna. What are they gonna do? Keep you around in a cell for the rest of your life? You might as well just go out with a bang.
They were already probably dead, but if they were alive and forced them to do something like that, they're gonna kill you.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, look, we left. We're just about out of time, but we left how many American soldiers in Russia as prisoners of war? Thousands. We left how many soldiers in Japan? We nuked our own soldiers in Japan. They were prisoners of war, dozens of them in Hiroshima, I believe, maybe Nagasaki too. We killed them. We'll blow up our own prisoners of war. We don't give a shit. How many people you think we left in Vietnam?
Yeah. And said they weren't there. They weren't there. We got all the missing soldiers.
They were taking. They were bringing bodies back from Afghanistan and Iraq filled with drugs and telling the families that they had died and they didn't find the bodies.
Yeah.
That's just for drug trafficking. Yeah.
Did you see could you bring up the BBC article that you had up? Because here's a very strange thing. If you go to the last two paragraphs on the article, look at the last two paragraphs of the article.
Right here?
Yeah, you can put it up on share it.
Oh, I thought it was on the screen. I apologize. There it is.
If you go to the last two paragraphs, there you go. And then so this news reporter, right? He's getting a thank you for his stay there and his experience. So Before flying out, my passport was stamped with the territory's coat of arms, its motto, something, whatever, I'm not going to pronounce it, meaning Limuria is in our charge, a reference to the mythical lost continent in the Indian. So why, isn't that kind of weird?
That's even weirder considering that people link the Bermuda Triangle and missing planes and boats to like Atlantean technology, the sister of Limuria. And then you have this base out in the middle of the Indian Ocean, and they're referencing the lost continent of Limuria.
A military base is with their coat of arms. Its motto is saying Limuria is in our charge. Now that's
and a plane goes missing and potentially ends up on this base, like a Bermuda Triangle situation. That's very strange.
Yeah, I'm glad you. I didn't know you were doing this this topic.
Yeah, I've never done a show on it before, and I thought about something to discuss tonight, and I went to the internet to look for some stories. I ended up watching a show called Into the Night, which is a sci-fi plane show, and I watched a little bit of Manifest, and then I found MH370, the documentary, watched that, and thought, let's do that. And then I found a recent story about it, and then the Bermuda Triangle story from last week, and I thought, okay, this is serendipitous. We should definitely talk about this. I'm glad that you could jump on for a few minutes.
Yeah, it's a bizarre story. It's almost as bizarre as the Georgia Guidestones blowing up, and no one's ever been caught for blowing the Guidestones up. I mean, that was a large explosion, and you're telling me that no one has ever been caught? They have the technology to find out. They have the technology to find out, where that explosive came from, where it was bought from, and nobody was ever caught with that.
Nope. They have that car on video too. I went to the Guidestones. I remember driving out there. I mean, there's not a lot of people out there. It's on I think it's on private property. There's like a Masonic lodge right around the corner too. That's
people were defacing it in the later years because, of course, they thought it was, the
Illuminati.
Yes, the world government. So then they put up the cameras. So there were actually cameras there when it blew up.
I think MH370 was taken to the Georgia Guidestones, really. I think that's the most logical explanation.
I mean, the logical explanation is if they don't want you to know and find out, good luck. You're not going
to find it.
You're not going to find out.
Right. That's like the FBI sitting on Wiener's laptop or the Epstein information, and they sat on the MH370 information too. They sat on the pilot data for what, 2-3 years, and then released it. And
unless you're David Wilcock, then you'll know everything. You'll know all the secrets of the universe.
You know what's funny is, there's like psychics that they'll say, I'm thinking of, I know you had a dog, right? You had a dog, because they sell your profile picture. Like, don't tell me his name. It starts with an A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L. Yes, L, right?
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what people do with these theories. They're like, I'm getting some information. I think MH370 went to the Georgia Guidestones.
Yeah,
and
they look like this. So, is it a big dog? Yes. Okay. Is it like a Labrador? No. Oh, wait a minute. I guess a German Shepherd? Yes. Let's just go down. A Mastiff? It's, yeah.
That's how it works. However you're going to get the money, whatever brings in the money.
Give me money, more money me, please.
Yeah, more money. Wasn't that a Sunny in Philadelphia thing?
Yes.
Charlie wrote that letter about his mom having cancer.
Give me money, more money, please. Money me. Money now. Money now. Money me. That's David Wilcock's motto, not the Limuria.
Yes.
His is money now, money me.
Money me now. Yeah, I wanted to discuss his this is going to be one of our next shows, like, for sure. Can you see this garbage?
Oh no! Oh yes, I can. David Wilcock, the incoming spaceship.
Yes.
Is this new?
It's going to air next. It's going to air over the weekend, I think.
Oh Lord, yeah, that's definitely a show.
Now you'll notice that he has pulled the comments off. They're gone, and I believe that is because I was in the comment section last night. And I can see what I was posting over there. I can save you all a lot of time and money. David Wilcock is a con artist, has lied to fabricated story. And now they're gone.
Oh man,
It's good stuff.
That's funny.
Yeah, check out the Secret Teachings or TST Radio for a real objective investigation of the unknown. And then he pulled it.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not going to give you any clout.
You're a piece of shit, David Wilcock.
Did you want to tell people what perhaps next week's show will be? We talked about it a little bit.
Why don't you premiere the
I think we're going to do an investigative journey into the movie Eyes Wide Shut, and go through the symbolism and occult symbolism and the weirdness of that movie. We'll break it down by parts, but there's so much in that movie. I remember seeing it with my girlfriend at the time when it first came out, and I wasn't as aware as I was back then, but I left there being we were looking at each other like, what did we just watch? What was that? It was even bizarre, but not knowing any of the occult symbolism or the occult knowledge that I have now. But I just remember leaving there and being like, that was a strange movie.
It's a very strange movie, and I think it's connected in more ways than one to The Shining as well.
Yeah, I'll let you talk about that because I don't really know too much about the connections between that movie. Of course, the same director.
I'd like to maybe we can have Ryder on because he did that a really good documentary with Jay Widener about The Shining, basically about psychology, about psych warfare, military, possibly military operations, Lookout Mountain, etc.
Yeah, The Shining has a lot of symbolism and weird stuff in it too.
Yes, we're way past the 2-hour mark now, so kind of the point of no return to make it a 2-hour solid show for the network. So whatever network it's on, it's probably just gonna cut off.
It's gonna fade us out. Yep.
Yes, it's gonna fade to black.
I'm gonna go grab the bacon Starbucks latte right now, so I got to get out of here.
I told Jimmy that's my favorite part of his show is when it fades to black. Let me, since I've got you here, and it doesn't really matter time wise now because of the archive. Let me pull up. So you've seen. I know you've seen the video of the orbs. Did you watch it tonight on the stream? Did you? I showed.
Yes, I've seen it. The orbs going around the plane and then the plane vanishing.
Yeah, and did you see the other images I showed you tonight on the show about?
Yes, I've seen the breakdown of how it was taken from somewhere else. It was total psyop video.
Yep. Again, let me pull those up for you. There's one, but no, it's real. It's real. Okay, so someone in the chat earlier, what's the guy's name? Ashton Forbes, I believe, is the guy's name who's been selling this stuff on X. Somebody in the chat room, please correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it was Ashton Forbes, I think. In fact, let me pull this up because some people had commented on our social media page about that. Ashton Forbes. Yeah. Quantum mechanics, fusion, and disclosure. Oh, yeah. Got to throw that word salad in there. Get people all excited. Yeah, this is the guy who's been really pushing this stuff on social media.
Yeah.
Real picture of the plane, Mike.
He actually gets a side paycheck from the CIA.
Probably so. Quantum mechanics, fusion, ZPE disclosure, orb. He's an orb expert. So it's like an AI photo.
Exactly. We gotta check his pay stubs.
300,000 followers for total bullshit. Oh, he's live right now. Look at that.
Look, that's a lovely Photoshop. You can do that in like 2 seconds. Photoshop.
Which, this one or this one?
His plane. That's what is that supposed to be? I don't know.
Well, that's part of the video because so here's the video here. You can see the plane. There's the orb. Look at those orbs.
Oh yeah.
That's fascinating, Mr. Forbes. And then it's going to vanish. It's going to go into the portal, Mike. Look at this portal open up. Watch the portal. Wait for the portal. Wait for the portal. Because, they have a satellite train on a random plane flying across the ocean. It makes sense. Look at that.
There it goes. Fade to black.
3, 2, 1, fade to black. Went through a portal.
Fade to blue.
Yeah, too bad that the image on the left is, or rather the video, is comparable with stock footage from shit in the 90s. But, that doesn't matter. That doesn't stop Ashton Forbes from selling trash or anybody else from selling trash. The one on the left is the video. The one on the right is the stock footage. Video, stock footage.
With today's video editing software, that's an easy video to make. Even if he did that 5-10 years ago, it's still easy to make.
Yeah, there's a bunch. I don't know how easy it is to find on YouTube, but there's a bunch of videos where they show, if you zoom in and you use, hold on one second. If you zoom in and you use your computer, like as a program, to slow it down, it actually shows, try to type and talk at the same time. It actually shows that the contrails are not matched up with the plane. So there's like a rendering issue.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see if I can find
that. Again, these fraudsters are so apparent, but they know people are so easily duped.
Videos. Sorry. Yes, go ahead. Sorry.
They know people are so easily duped. It's sloppy work.
Yes, it is. Exactly. Here, let me zoom in on this and I can show it to you.
Ashton Forbes. Ashton is like a cigar manufacturer that makes fancy cigars, and his Forbes magazine. Sounds like a fake name too.
It does. Piece of garbage. These fucking people selling fake stories all the time. Okay, where's my... Did it just disappear? I thought I had it up. Oh, there it is. There it is. I'm sorry. Okay, let's show this to the listeners. You guys get me every week for 3 hours. I always say 2, and then it turns into 3. Okay,
wait, wasn't it 4 last week?
It was 4. It might have been 4. 1 week it was 5. Okay, so here's the video. This is the stock footage here. I know if you're listening audio, you can't see this, but it's the same image. There's the stock footage there, stock footage, and then you just compare that to the actual plane. And then I think the best part is the rendering issue with the contrails. Watch this. You can see the plane go up and down, and the contrails go up and down behind it. Look at this. Up and down, 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 up and down.
The wind is blowing them.
Yes. And look at the orbs are leaving a convenient trail behind them too. I thought they didn't have propulsion that was...
Oh man, those are magnetic. They're magnetic. That's a magnetic wave. These con artists are like, they don't even care. I mean, we just covered these cons last week. These Wilcox, they're so sloppy that from their last week's video, they'll totally contradict themselves. But they know that these people are not even paying attention and just willing to give up their money. It's crazy.
It is. It's disgusting. Our good friend Gary says, is the sim, what did he say? Sat sim. I thought it said Satanism, Gary. Satan sim. Sat sim is the sim that can make these. It was written to monitor Soviet planes coming over the horizon. Our resident science expert, Gary. Totally fake. And you're right, Mike. We just talked about these frauds last week. I didn't expect to talk too much about this tonight, but it's the same kind of thing with UFOs. I mean, I mentioned the UFOs that were over the military base in 29 Palms where Corbell lives. And he filmed this. I think it made it to mainstream news, international news. This UFO, it turned out to be flares, confirmable flares, where you can find the original video and then just like mirror it over his picture. It's flares. And then that irrigation circle that Louis Elizondo was selling, that was an irrigation circle.
Yeah.
Fake.
I mean, that whole SST space thing that they have with that Blink 182 guy, that's complete fraud.
Yes. Total fraud. Total scam. Oh, here it is. I got the picture. Here it is. So this is basically this is so fun. There's the UFO, that UFO Louis Elizondo shared. Wow. Too bad it's a fucking irrigation circle.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
They labeled it on Google Maps or Google Earth Elizondo's UAP, because they took it and they distorted, just like we did last week with the fake alien pictures. Somebody took this irrigation circle photograph and they distorted it and they put filters on it so it looks like this. And then it turns out that it's just this.
I love these like former CIA whistleblowers. Yeah, sure you are. Like, yeah, sure you're not CIA anymore, right? Oh, I was former CIA for 40 years and now I'm a whistleblower. Yeah, okay, sure you are.
Yep, very convenient.
Yeah.
I actually think these people are trying to do the opposite at this point. I think that they're trying to prevent disclosure. That's what it feels like. 29 palms. I wonder if I can find that video, that photograph.
Somebody sent me a video. We didn't cover him, but is that Bashir guy?
Bashir?
Yeah, the guy that channels aliens, Bashir.
Oh God, that guy is disgusting. I've seen him at a conference rubbing up on women.
I went to his website. He's selling green quartz necklaces that you can get green quartz for very, very cheap, and even jewelry, maybe like $50 or whatever, $60, maybe even $70 for like a high end piece with real 14 karat gold, like chain or something. He's selling cheap green quartz for $200 on his website.
These people will never, ever, ever stop.
Yeah, they had a video. Saw a video of him getting ready to channel. So he's the guy. He's his normal self, right? I forget his like real name because he has a real name. It's not Bashir. That's the entity he supposedly channels. But he was sitting next to the guy getting ready to channel, and then he's like sitting there with his hands like clasped, and then all of a sudden he's like. I am here. I am here.
Yeah, I love when people get into those. They get into those altered states. They do something silly and really obvious. They make noises. Okay.
It's like
I am
people
raw.
dancing with snakes at the church.
Yep.
Snake dance.
So I've got something for you, Mike. I'm going to pull this image up. So 1 second here. So first of all, what you see on your screen are the flares that Jeremy Corbell took in his backyard, basically. Convenient. Jimmy Church rather took the Malibu base images, Google Earth, in his backyard because he lived out there. And then Corbell took these images in his backyard. It's convenient that people looking for alien bases find them in their backyard and UFOs find them in their backyard. But that's what this image is. And it turns out that's just flares. Real quick, Echo in the chat. I think Echo's the one who brought up earlier Ashton Forbes. He said Professor Dave felted him. Who's Professor Dave? I don't know who that is. I'm not up to date on all these internet spats. But what I wanted to show you, Mike, is this image here. Hold on a second. Can you tell this? This is an old video of David Wilcock and Carrie Cassidy. And David Wilcock just looks so bizarre. He looks like look at those eyes. That's not from sleeping too little. I think he's done like makeup so he kind of looks like an alien or like he's like channeling something. What is that?
Or someone punched him. They're just two black eyes.
Yeah, so exactly. That was his early scamming days. He tried to con somebody and they just knocked him out.
What's that scarf there? That's nice. Has that got some type of logo on it, or?
I think that makes him look like some sort of master or some sort of
Master Zen.
Yes. But I was thinking, what does he looks like? Something. He reminds me of something, and the only thing I could come up with the way that his eyes and his head are, this is what he reminds me of from the Twilight Zone. This episode of The Serve Man, He reminds me of the alien. Look at those like dark circles and that big head.
The dude's had the same hairline now for a while.
Look at that. It kind of strikes me as the same thing.
My brother.
Yeah.
He's like gonna shoot lightning. It looks like he's about to shoot lightning beams out of his eyes.
He looks like a zombie. Something's wrong, man. That was back. God, that had to have been like 15, 20 years, probably 20 years ago.
Well, he's telling her like there's going to be mass arrests coming soon. This is 20 years ago.
Oh yeah, if you watch any of those old, we should do that sometime. We should watch one of his old videos. All the stuff that these people say is totally wrong and fake and false, and yet nobody ever calls them out on it. Who follow them? They just we exposed it, so it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you, Jim Bob. Jim Bob just sent me $250. Thank you, Jim Bob.
What an idiot, Jim Bob. You're an idiot. We take no money during YouTube because I don't want 40% of it going to the Wachowski sister or whatever her name is. Who runs
she's
YouTube.
dead. She's dead.
She dead? Well,
she did. I don't know who runs it now, but who you're speaking of is she dead. She died about 5-6 months ago.
Probably Rabinowitz took over.
Yeah, there's
Rosenstein.
There's definitely another member that took over.
We have another listener in the chat. Zifnab. I've never seen Zifnab in the chat. Welcome to the show tonight. Looks like a Temu version of David Hyde Pierce from Frasier.
That's true.
It's true. He reminded me of the alien from the Twilight Zone for some reason. I don't know why.
Because you're focused on his eyeballs. You're really focused on
his head and his head.
And his head, yeah.
Well, I'm sure that now that I've said this.
I wish he would have opened his mouth in this picture. Then we could have seen his old teeth. Because a couple years ago, he bragged that his donators gave him a new set of teeth. I think we did a show on that.
Yes, we did. We did.
I think the name of the show was like New Teeth, Same Fraud or something.
Yeah, it was David Wilcock, New Teeth, Same Scam.
New Teeth, Same Scam.
I have all of those images. I had when I was over here in Japan last year. I remember there was an issue with the archive, and I had to re-upload all these shows. So I sat there in the hotel one night and I uploaded all of our David Wilcock shows, and I had to go back and find all the images. So I actually have that image. I'll pull it up for you here. David Wilcock. It's in my archive. David Wilcock, New Teeth, Same Scam. I think it's in the archive if that's the right name. New Teeth, Same Scam. Hold on a second. I know I can find it. Give me 1 second.
I think we estimated that the cost of all his teeth it was like $400 a tooth, and he got his whole 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, it was a lot of money that he got from donors to get his new teeth because it was $400 a tooth.
Maybe that I thought that was the name of the show because I think the promo. I'm trying to find it. The promo picture was like those joke teeth that you wind up and they go meow 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 meow.
Yes.
Table.
Yes.
And I edited his forehead onto the teeth. The teeth. Anyway, I can't find it though because I thought it was in here. We had so many of these shows. Reversing the Con. We did that with David Oates where we did reverse speech. We did a part 2 of that, I think, actually.
Yeah, the reverse speech is definitely interesting. I like it. I like it.
David Wilcock blocking. That was another one. David Wilcock, spiritual superhero, is another one.
Yeah.
New Teeth, Same Scam. So that is the name of the show. I don't. It must have been old. Must have been an older show. I was confident I was going to find it.
He got in somehow and deleted it. He's like, you'll never post this show again. Not with my brand new teeth.
Brand new teeth. Oh, yeah. I don't see it. It must have got scrubbed or something. I don't see it on Facebook either. What happened to it? What? Why is it? It's not there. Well, that's upsetting.
You'll find it sooner or later.
One of my
Maybe.
favorites was the one I did where I gave him a Pinocchio nose.
Oh, was that the Grand Deceivers?
Yes.
Yeah. I remember. Yep.
Okay, I've got a better idea. I'm going to try one more time to find this, and then we can give some final comments here. New teeth, same scam. No, maybe it's not in. Why? Where is it? All right. Well, I guess it's not in there. I thought it was in there. That's weird. I guess I'll have to. Here's Mystery Scam Theater, part 1, 2, 3, and 4. We had 4 episodes of Mystery Scam Theater, Mike.
He's a big deal now. They're on YouTube. There's other shows that cover him, and that's it. I noticed.
Isn't that crazy that there are people that dedicate like their entire media personality to just covering one con artist?
Yeah. That's I saw a couple other shows that cover. They were doing Corey Good for a couple shows. But yeah, we were covering these frauds years ago.
Yes, we were. We had Joe from the Carolinas on. Remember him?
Oh yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, Gary said something. He said iceberg after he sunk the Titanic. Yeah, iceberg was definitely part of the tribe. I think my that guy I used to be friends with, William Sweeney, the rapper. He said, "Iceberg Steinberg. There's no difference."
Yeah.
I mean, who was on that ship? The 3 people that opposed the Federal Reserve. So it probably was an iceberg. Iceberg and Silverberg. All right, Mike. Thanks for jumping on with us.
Yes. Yeah. No problem. I was bopping around. I saw you were live. Got on. I was like, oh yeah, I'll get on this.
I send out all of the promo stuff, but I guess a lot of people don't get it. I've been told they're not getting the invites, they're not getting the notifications, even though they're subscribed to the channel. This is why I just don't mess with it. It's in the audio archive. I don't mess with it because none of this stuff works.
Well, a lot of people on YouTube complain. That's what YouTube does. They stop the notifications from people. So you have to give your listeners again, make sure that your bell is clicked. To
yes,
because they like doing that. Once they find out that you're ribbing David Wilcock, that's a no-no, and they're gonna try to shut you down. You got to let these people believe the fraud.
Clearly, the algorithm likes people like that.
Yeah, this guy's been on for years, just bullshitting. His show's never been taken down once.
Nope. Isn't that wild? I've had my channel taken down multiple times, and I don't even use YouTube. This channel got taken down when it was dormant. Somebody went back and reported like an old show, and I got a notification. I was like, I don't even remember having a YouTube, and it said it got removed for something I did in like 2015.
Well, remember the person on YouTube that used your audio clip and then made a video of it. I think it was
that was the Antarctica one.
Yes, and then he made like $2,000 off the video. Yes. He made $2,000 off the video. Because what he did is he used your audio, then he just put images to it,
and
then he put up on, and then he monetized it, and then you can there's programs where you can see how much money a video makes, and he made $2,000. Then we reported and we got taken down.
Cole Cushman says, Professor Dave may be the most dangerous person on YouTube, a true coincidence theorist who claims to be a professor similar to the ufology snake oil salesman who claim various abilities. Well, see, this is the problem with all these people on the internet. I don't know who Professor Dave is. I know Ashton Forbes. Sounds like they don't get along. It's just a bunch of grifters and con artists fighting with each other. And that's why when, people used to email me, Mike, and say things like, have you heard of the Conspiracy Realist 37 on YouTube? I was like, I don't give a fuck about Conspiracy Realist 37 on YouTube. I don't give a shit.
Yeah. Rabbit Hole 69 reportedly talks to Q directly. That's where he gets his comms from. His government agent contacts, insiders. He's got inside. Yeah. Hey, listen, we got insiders, folks. Okay, we got insiders. We got government insiders.
Deep in the rabbit hole.
Yeah, Anybody who says that bullshit, immediately they're a fraud, or they're getting misinformation from whatever their source is that they claim is a military contact.
It appears Q is actually in the chat tonight, Mike. You see that?
Oh, I am Q. I am Groot.
Yeah. Everybody's Q.
Remember we did the show on the
Right.
random forest, and that was back in like 1980 something. And one of the people that witnessed the UFO, they got him into interrogation, said you can't talk to anybody about this, you know.
Yes.
And then he goes like 2-3 miles off base to a payphone and calls his mom and says, "You're not gonna believe this. I saw you." Then he gets back to the base and they arrest him. Like, we heard what you said. So, you know, we got government insiders. You don't think by now, that was like 1980, that they know everything and can hear and see everything, and you've got secret government insiders giving you secret knowledge?
That's right.
Such bullshit.
I remember you ripped into that on the show we did. You talked about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just common sense.
Oh, in the chat, I think that she's right. Marion May says the show's called David Wilcox Veneers. And I think he's right, or I think she's right, excuse me. I misgendered.
Misgendered. How dare you?
I think you're right. It's called David Wilcox Veneers. Hold on, let me see if I can find that. Wilcox Veneers. Still might not come up, but I think you're right, Marion. I think it's David Wilcox Veneers was that episode.
I think I was on there.
You were on most of those episodes, most of them.
Yeah.
You were on the, I think you're the only person that's been on these episodes. Oh my goodness. When I go to Facebook and type this in, there are so many people that take screenshots from Wilcox videos and post them. Everybody knows this guy's a clown.
It's a complete clown. It's so funny. We can go to happening to flight 370 to talking about a complete clown. You know, one is like a mystery, right? That's will never be solved, and the other one is not a mystery at all. It's a complete fraud.
Oh, I didn't know that you said that already. Pound PT said I already said the Dave. I didn't see that in the chat. Sorry, but yeah, I think you're right. It is David Wilcox Veneers.
Wow, we got some old listeners in there because that's an old ass show.
I don't even remember all these Wilcox shows.
That's probably that's probably from 2018, 19, maybe 2020. I don't know, something like that.
Let me look in the archive and see if it comes up. If it does not, then it's before 2017. How do you spell Veneers?
Is it Vaneers?
Yeah, it's not in here. Yeah, it's not in here. So it must be before 2017. Wow, that's an old episode.
There's Miss May sent you the link.
Really? Oh. Okay. I can't click the link though.
They copy and paste it into your browser.
It won't copy and paste it.
As YouTube blocks links, I think.
Goodness.
But April 8/12.
Yeah, but what year? That's 15 years. 15 years. I guess I could narrow it down, probably 2014 to 2020, somewhere around there. But either way, we've done so many shows on this stuff. I don't know.
Veneers, yes, he's got very expensive teeth. He has. I'm waiting for a total. I'm sorry to diss someone on looks. It's not something I normally do, but for a fraud, I'll do it.
But he did it to himself too, so.
I'm waiting for like the hair transplant. I can't wait until we see that hair transplant. I know it's coming. I know. Just give it maybe a year or two, and we're gonna see a hair transplant on the dude.
Transplant, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe it seems like he's got a little Botox here and there too, but I can't really confirm that.
Well, he's definitely got the makeup crew from the Twilight Zone working on him.
Yeah, he's got that special tan in the last couple episodes too. He's got a nice tan.
Well, that's you know he went on vacation reportedly.
Oh yeah, to get away from the truth, I think.
This guy is just endless comedy.
$2 million cabin, but he doesn't have AC, and he's couldn't sleep at night because of the smoke and fire, so he had to open up his windows because it's too hot. You got a $2 million cabin. You know, there's inside units that you can put in your house that aren't expensive too. You can circulate air and get cool air in your cabin.
Yeah, but see, this is the guy who he said he had to. He called the fire department to fix the batteries in his smoke detector. So I mean, and he also had to. I heard his recent story where his car battery died and he got stranded without his phone because he thought the deep state was tracking him. So he had to have some Jewish guy help him. And then he praised how great, how Jewish this guy was. He did in the video. And then he said he had to pay his neighbor to install the battery. And I just thought, like, I know nothing about cars, but that is like the easiest thing to do on a car. That's about as easy as putting air in a tire.
Yeah, he can afford like a 200-pound bag of bird feed to feed this turkeys outside, but he can't afford an AC unit.
Yeah,
he's got pictures of him, and then I don't know if you noticed, because I think we didn't do the video where there's another new one. Well, it's not that new, but he puts on. I think we did though. I don't remember, but remember he puts on the glasses and then puts in the fake cigarette and talks in a different voice.
Oh yeah, that's the angry daddy.
Yes. Yes.
Weird stuff.
It's weird stuff, man.
Thank you, Noka. Noka says I found you at CITD when Sather was a complete douche. Appreciate that.
He was Sather was working Smoothie King and then became a conspiracy theorist star and was hitting all the circuits and then got called out as a scam and then kind of disappeared into the night like they all do.
Yeah, remember when I went, I think that was the same year I went up to Jimmy Church, tried to shake his hand. He said, I don't know who you are. And then Sather did the exact same thing. He said on video, he said, yeah, this Ryan Gable guy, I don't know who he is. But prior to that, he knew exactly who I was because he was yelling at me out of his car window at the conference.
Yes.
He knew exactly who I was.
He said something to you, right? When you were walking, when he drove by?
Yeah, he went, hey, buddy.
Hey, buddy. I'm going to deep state scare you right now.
Yeah, I think I said something along the lines of, fuck you, you grifter, scammer, piece of trash, your fake girlfriend.
I mean, he was aligned with Wilcock, and then they had like a falling out.
Yes, I think he got molested by Corey Good, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, that's just an opinion.
Just an opinion.
And then of course he disappeared. You know, a lot of these people, they do.
Well, see, here's the thing, Mike. I know that the promo tonight says what happened to MH370. I think we went through this. I went through it before you came on. I went through it pretty thoroughly.
Mm-hmm.
All the conspiracies, all the theories, all the official information. And this hour is just a random hour that we started doing because you jumped on the chat. But I'll say this, that I think there's a connection. That UFO video about MH370 is fake. Ashton Forbes is clearly a con artist.
Agreed.
Yes. And that UFO video or the orb video is just another example of frauds exploiting, in this case, a tragedy, in this case, the deaths, we assume, of 239 passengers and 12 crew. We're talking about exploiting a mystery to make money. And it's disgusting. And Ashton Forbes is just like David Wilcock. So yes, it requires an hour of additional commentary that's totally outside the norm, even for conspiracy conversations, to show you that, and I mentioned this at the very beginning of the show, there's a link between the UFO community and the MH370 conspiracy community. People are willing to believe anything. They'll believe fake videos that are clearly fake because it solves the mystery and it makes them credible in their minds, and it makes them feel as if they're special and important because the military couldn't figure it out. The U.S. government couldn't figure it out. Malaysian Airlines couldn't figure it out. But somebody who weighs about 290 pounds behind a keyboard, sitting in the middle of absolutely nowhere in the Midwest, they figured it out because they got on Reddit and they got on X and they watched this video by Ashton Forbes. Now they have the answers. And it just makes people that have no other purpose in life feel like they have purpose. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, I was talking to some OG Redders. These were people that were posting on Reddit 15 years ago, and they said that they no longer post on. They haven't in years because Reddit has become just a disinformation psyop hub.
Yes, it has. I mean, it might have been good at first. It might have been an open platform, but that's what usually happens to anything that's good. It gets taken over. But there's
I think the most. Go ahead.
Sorry. No, go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say you've made a good connection. These frauds pop up in like you just said, this Ashton Forbes, another fraud popping up on Malaysia Flight 370, trying to find out the truth, trying to find out why a huge 747, right?
I believe it was might have been larger. Let's see, 370.
I think you're right, because if it's 293 passengers, it's probably.
I think it was a 777.
I think you're right. So this plane just disappears, or if it crashes in the ocean, there's no oil spillage. There's no oil slick on top of the ocean. A large of these planes, if it crashes in the ocean, you would think that there'd be some type of oil spillage, wreckage of any kind. Nothing found. I mean, come on.
Yes, and also they initially had said that there might have been an oil trail somewhere. Would have been the South China Sea, Gulf of Thailand, well, kind of in between where the plane was going. That turned out to be from a tanker. So that was the only evidence of an oil trail or anything that they found, and it was confirmed to be from a tanker. So they know that it didn't come from the plane. So you're right. Yeah, the ocean's pretty big. If it did crash and they don't know what happened to it genuinely, but you'd expect to find some type of evidence. It is crazy that you don't.
And also the engines in that plane, I believe I read that they're built by Mercedes, and Mercedes has tracking equipment because of parts to monitor the engines. And they could find out by just seeing where the sensor data was on those engines, or where the plane was. And
yes.
Still nothing of where this plane is.
I believe that the black box also transmits a signal. I mean, there's so many different components on a plane, from in regard to the company that puts things there, and different companies that manufacture the parts. Mm-hmm. Everything has freaking tracking on it, and you can't find it.
Yeah. Did you see my message in the chat about you were talking about the cell phones? How some calls were still being. Yeah. I believe it was Fox News. I don't trust Fox News, but Fox News reached out to the phone companies and the Federal Trade Commission and asked if it's possible about the cell phones, and they offered no comment.
No comment.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. It was a Fox News article, and then they reached out to the phone manufacturers and also the Federal Trade Commission, and they said no comment.
Wow. This. I didn't even hear this story. This is another one. The independent MH370 co-pilot's phone was on and made contact with network tower 30 minutes after plane turned around. Huh.
Yeah, they didn't want to comment on that.
New details come after reports that First Officer Farik Abdul Hamid tried to make a call once the jet had vanished. It was probably remote control hijacked. So they lost control of the stick. They lost control of the communications. All the transmitting information was shut down. I think that everything on the plane at the same time was shut off, or at least they lost contact with the outside. And then the pilot tried to make a phone call. We don't have any communication with the outside. Let me try to use my cell phone. Yeah, it was definitely a military operation. I'm pretty convinced after reading that.
It's so much BS.
Wow, I didn't see that, and that was they knew that back in 2014.
2014, and still nothing.
After all that time, MH370 co-pilot phone was on and made contact with network, and he attempted to make a call, which tells you that they were still alive. The plane did not crash. It did not go down in flames. It did not crash into the ocean. And if it turned around and was flying the other direction for 30 minutes, that probably means that the plane was operating fine, but it was probably under the control of something else. And they had no control and no communications, and so they tried to use their cell phones. Wow.
Yeah. Isn't that a coincidence?
That
It's
is
like it's like eating breakfast every day at the World Trade Center for 10 years, but on the day that that actually it blows up and goes down, you don't eat your breakfast.
Well, a lot of people didn't show up that day, didn't they? Oops.
Yeah,
just work.
There were some that didn't show up.
So I was also. They were from a what?
Different country.
Yes, they were. So it was a 777, by the way. I looked that up. It was a 777, and it was a Boeing. And just for the record, so we can add another thing to the pile and get this show removed, John Barnett and Joshua Dean. Remember those guys who one died by suicide, bang, after telling the attorneys what he knew. And then I'm pretty sure Boeing had him offed. And then the other guy, Joshua Dean, died of a fast-acting, I believe it was a bacterial infection, conveniently. And then I also believe the FAA, I read the documents from the FAA, they investigated Boeing, and they were trying to figure out who was in charge of overseeing the team that installed the door on that plane that blew out, the Alaskan Airlines plane. And according to the federal government's own report, I wasn't prepped for this, or I would have pulled the actual report and showed it to you. The report said that when they found that Boeing didn't know who it was, they claimed they didn't know, they had no record of who was in charge of that team, which was a lie. The federal government found out who it was, and Boeing said, "Oh yeah, we remember them. They must have done it." And then when they asked, "Can we talk to these people?" reportedly, this is in the government document, the person that they were going to try to talk to figure out what happened also came down with a mysterious illness and could not talk to investigators. So it sounds like Boeing shot a guy and then poisoned two people.
There you go.
That's what it sounds like happened.
Yeah, that sounds plausible.
And hey, I was thinking, for another wacky conspiracy, which doesn't make any sense, admittedly, but for another wacky conspiracy, this 777 was a Boeing. So maybe there was some horrible mechanical or other kind of failure issues, and Boeing didn't want to say anything. So then they created this whole. That's not what happened. I'm just saying, if you want another crazy conspiracy, we can make them up all day. But it was a Boeing.
Did you see Cool Channel Names comment there? Is that true? Is that you have the research on that, or is that?
Well, there were 20 employees on the plane. I don't know if they were leading experts. I doubt that they were. Usually you don't have all the world's leading experts working for one company. I don't think that's the case. But there were 20 on the plane, yes. Confirmed. 20 different officials from the company that were on the plane, yes. Yeah. But again, I don't think they were the leading experts in their fields. There were 20 Freescale employees that were on the plane. There's also a mystery box of cargo that was under lock and key and security cleared without being scanned at the airport. Like, it was brought in separate from the normal channels and placed on the plane. That's another strange part of the story. But yeah, it appears because there was static that was heard from that Tokyo pilot, and they heard voices, and then apparently the co-pilot's phone tried to make a phone call, which also means that the pilot probably had nothing to do with it, and the plane was still flying fine. It wasn't a mechanical issue, didn't crash, and it probably landed at Diego Garcia or some other military base. That seems to be the only conclusion that we can come to.
Yeah, it's going to be a mystery.
It's one of those files that just gets filed away. As I was watching that documentary, I was thinking at the very end, I was just thinking they're putting it in a crate and they're just putting it into a warehouse of other crates. It's just going to sit, and like 3 people know about it, and in 90 years they'll be dead, and then nobody will have any clue what happened. But can you imagine? You ever seen that episode of the X-Files where the smoking man, he killed Kennedy, and then he just walks back and goes back to his house with his family?
And then is that the one where then he goes upstairs and it just ends with him like smoking a cigarette in the chair by himself? I don't know if that's
he's remembering it. Yeah.
Yes.
Remembering it.
Yeah.
I thought that kind of the same thing. I thought that about 9/11. I thought that about MH370, that whoever did it, whoever was responsible for it, they take over control of a plane, remote control probably. I haven't heard that theory, by the way. I'm submitting that. It was probably taken over through remote control. This definitely can be done. This was only like 11 years ago too, and this is likely what happened on 9/11. That was way longer ago, 25 years ago. So it's probably taken over by remote control, and there's somebody that probably was responsible for that, who took the plane over and knew that the people on this plane were going to die, and they did it, and then they went home to their family after their job was done, their shift. That is just very creepy and weird to think about.
It is. But even years before 9/11 and years before this, Oklahoma City was blown up with the children in those buildings. There's children that died. So whoever set that up, I mean, that's a whole different show. But again, I think that was a total setup too. They had no problem killing children,
That's true. That's true. I mean, that seems to be a requirement if there's ritualistic overtones to it.
There was a second John Doe that was reported by multiple people and agencies, and he just that guy just disappeared, just vanished. Just vanished.
Yep.
But we got one, and we put him to death pretty quickly. That was the fastest death sentence I've ever seen before.
Yeah, usually you're on death row for like 20 years.
Yeah, and then you get maybe some people interview you, magazines or whatnot, news things, but he barely got any interviews, and they often quick.
I was laughing while you were talking because Mark in the chat said, "Why not scam it up?" said Forbes. That's right, scam it up.
Yeah, that guy's a piece of crap.
Zifnab, none of the governments, either U.S., China, or Malaysia, are telling the truth about the event. The plane was deliberately diverted. High-value passengers or cargo may have been the reason. The cargo thing, I don't really understand, but the passengers, perhaps, I'd understand. I understand that. Could you imagine they probably just took these? Maybe they took these 20 or so people. They killed everybody else. Took these 20. They're probably at like a black site.
Oh yeah,
and, enslaved.
Oh, and to work on. Enslaved to work on programs, technology, forced to.
And if you refuse to or try to contact the outside world, look at what we have here, a picture of your wife and kids, your husband.
Exactly.
They'll just die mysteriously and nobody will think anything of it. 11 years later, the wife of one of the people on the plane said she couldn't take it anymore and decided to slit her wrists while she drove her car over a cliff and then shoot herself in the head 15 times. It's very horrible. That's the kind of stuff that these people do. Like that banker who shot himself 96 times with a nail gun.
Yeah, in the back of the head.
Yep.
Or the Washington madam who said multiple times she would never kill herself and was found at her mom's house hanging from a tree.
Wow.
And she, her book of clients was never mentioned again.
That's right. Thank you. Great transition back to Flight 370. I'm just one.
That's a great fade to black there, Ryan. That was great. Great to tie up the loose ends there.
Yeah, that's what I'm good at. I'm good at segueing. We'll segue back into a 370.
Yeah, I threw you a curveball and joined this evening, but I think you segued nicely.
I think that's what happened. Yep, I think that's the only feasible explanation that aligns with the evidence and makes any sense. And I don't think it was the Russians. Mike, you have any final comments?
No, only to say I'm still confused by their motto and why would they mention Limuria on it. That's just bizarre to me. But yes, I agree with you 100%. Something very shady went on there and not good at all.
I wasn't convinced. Now I'm convinced at the end of tonight's show. I've convinced myself inadvertently. So but imagine the level as I'm closing the show out here tonight. Imagine the level of like ego and narcissism and tone deafness and just like irrational psychosis that you have to look at people who lost their family members and tell them aliens took them and they're still alive and they're being anally molested every day for science experiments. Like, you have to be the lowest piece of trash on planet Earth to do something like that. That is just fucking disgusting.
Agreed. But I gotta say one thing to Gary 1961 because he mentioned Vince Foster. I mean, when I first started to do the show years back, I talked about Vince Foster, and we did a show. We did a show where we proved that he didn't kill himself, of the evidence of the different gun that was placed on him, the powder marks, how he was stuffed found in the back of a trunk, or a lot of. It was a long time ago, but yes, I mentioned Vince Foster long time ago on a show. We did a show about that.
He
But
did
yes,
that on Dark Matter.
yes, definitely. His office immediately cleared out by Hillary coming out with files out of his office.
What does it even matter, Mike? What does it even matter? She tells Congress. What does it even matter?
Him leaving the White House before he supposedly killed himself, missing the camera footage, missing of him leaving the White House.
Convenient.
So yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Gary, because I talked about that. I feel bad. That was my first really felt bad for someone being killed by nefarious purposes was Vince Foster.
One of the notorious Hillary hits. A lot of Clinton hits. All right. Well, Mike, thanks for joining us. Everybody in the chat, thank you for joining us. We do this every Friday because listeners subscribe, buy books. I don't ask for people to donate, but if you'd like to donate, there's a Cash App option. That's the best option, especially because I'm overseas. TSTradio.info is the website. rdgable@yahoo.com is the email. All the links are below, whether you're on the audio or video stream. Either way, if you're on Apple, please leave us a review. That would really help the show. Don't rely on other people to do it. Just take a second to leave us a review, because people that don't like us will. So if you like us, please leave us a review on Apple and share the show. And Mike, thanks for jumping on. I feel like you enjoy these Friday night shows.
I do, yes. Even with one good leg.
Even with one good leg. I hope that you get better. Mike is still recovering. And by the way, this is not a joke. I actually have to go to the dentist today, Mike. And I have to have something done with my wisdom tooth. So I just wanted to let you know that the cabal is responsible for me grinding that tooth down.
Oh no. Oh no. Hopefully they don't gas you at the dentist's office as a hit, cabal hit.
I did see Zyklon B in there when I went for the checkup. So possibly. All right.
Well, if you make it, I will see you next Friday for the show on the movie Eyes Wide Shut or Open, depending on how we cover it.
Yes, that, and I'm sure we'll work up some other similar topics we'll mix into the show. So that's our goal for next week. Yes, Mike will be here next week for the show. Thank you for listening to The Secret Teachings. Again, if you're watching the video, you're just coming across this show. This is a Monday through Friday radio broadcast, and we are on a lot of different platforms. TSTradio.info. And if you're wondering, why does the audio sound so bad when you play the music? That's because every piece of technology I touch malfunctions. And if you're just listening in the audio version of the show, the music is totally fine. There's no problem. All right, Mike, thanks for joining us. I will speak with you soon. Have a good night.
All right, everybody. Take care out there. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye, Mike. And there goes Mike D. Again, I'm Ryan Gable. This is The Secret Teachings, TSTradio.info. Thank you so much for joining the show. And I will speak with you on the next broadcast. Shoot me an email. Let me know what you think, if I touched on all the different important points, and if you think my conclusions, I'm not saying it's the truth, I'm just saying that's my conclusion. If you think my conclusions are close to the truth, I'll talk to you on the next broadcast.